expected that he undergoes a mental assessment test on Monday next week. These are as revelations by KU North Sub-County DCIO Arnold Monga indicated that Tirop was killed on the 12th of last month, adding that they've recovered CCTV footage that captured the whole act, evidence that's critical in the case. The DCIO also says the footage is among the evidence that will be used to conclude the case and deliver justice to the slain athlete's family. Now, Vihiga Queens defeated Moroccan side Esfar 2-0 as they put their CAF Women's Champions League campaign back on track at the Al Salam Stadium in Cairo, Egypt. Queen's quest to the continental champion has begun with a 1-0 loss at the hands of Mamelodi Sundowns and needed to bounce back. Violet Wanyonyi and Gentrix Chikangwa scored in either half to secure victory that leaves the Kenyans needing a draw against Nigeria's River Angels to advance from Group B. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
No, you know, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in McQueen?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Seriousness Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Seriousness Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
It's a good morning, isn't it? Let's see what Wednesday has in store. Smack dab in the middle of the week. And it looks like traffic is already building up in certain parts. Not too bad. So if you haven't left yet, now might be a good time to do so. All right, let's take a look at what's going on Jogo Road. Usual suspects this morning. Not too bad. But you're going to get to that Landis Road stretch and it'll hold up just a little bit as you get to the Kamkunji roundabout and then spilling onto Haile Selassie this morning. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, not too bad actually. Free and clear all the way in and out of the CBD. Kiambu Road looks good. We know that they're planning to expand that in a short while, but for now we're going to have to contend with the madness that is traffic on Kiambu Road. For now, doesn't look too bad at all. Mombasa Road, right around that Imara Daima stretch is where you will see some traffic right now. But again, nothing too crazy. Uhuru Highway then, leading into the city. Coming off of that South Sea Bend, that's where you have some traffic right now. Everything else hasn't woken up just yet. Now might be a good time to get out. We'll see in a minute. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's see what it looks like in your neck of the woods. If you run into something we should know about, text as well on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 9 after 6. Good morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation this 10th day of November 2021. Still with Eric and Ndu City away. How are you, Ndu?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. You well?
I am all right. Here.
It's cold in here, man.
Yeah. The sun is shining outside, but it seems to be winter here in this room.
The sun is shining outside.
Soon to be. You can't see the sun coming up behind those clouds
not
there.
shining.
It's going to be a brilliant sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
Late, but it'll be good.
Gonna be a beautiful one.
How are
It
you?
drizzled at night in some parts.
It did. It rained heavily in my neck of the woods.
Heavy.
Yes.
So the sun is not gonna be coming out bright. That won't happen. I'm well.
You are?
Yes.
Good. I'm happy to see you.
Good. I'm also happy to see you. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. We are glad that you're tuned in from wherever you are around the world this morning on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, and Facebook, and Twitter. We'll have some conversations today. One reflecting what's happening in the country. Something else that we also ought to reflect is on sickle cell. What do you know about sickle cell? And the sickle cell disease as an ailment. So we will be discussing that at 8 o'clock. We'll have an expert on these matters who will be here with us. And then at 9, we also now want to have another conversation about insurance. What about?
Well, disruptions in the insurance sector, especially digitally. What's going on now? How have trends changed? What directions are we going in? Insurance across board, right? I know when people hear insurance, we think, okay, vehicle insurance and that's it. Quite some now. And what has happened most recently with how insurance is delivered and what it actually means for people who use it and those who should use it.
It'll be interesting to hear the trends that have been adopted by Kenyan insurance companies, because I still believe that they are archaic in their thinking and their operations.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a very low, very, very low insurance uptake in this country.
Yep.
And I blame it squarely on these guys because they go for the easier one. Because the law says that you must have motor vehicle insurance, that one is sorted.
They focus on that.
And they focus on that. And then the general insurance is just basically what you have. And going for the big money, you are operating a business, you'll be required to have insurance as part of you looking good to your lenders. Come on.
There's got to be more.
Yes. And they have refused to embrace life as it is. Anyway, that conversation coming up at 9 o'clock. COVID in numbers.
Right, so let's look at global numbers of COVID-19. 251,556,304. That's what we're looking at around the world. 5 million deaths. We're still looking at, interestingly, you know what? The top 10 countries that suffered heavy hits with COVID has never changed since the introduction of COVID-19. Except for 2, Germany and Italy, then dropped into the second 10. So between the US to India, Brazil, the UK, Russia, Turkey, France, Iran, Argentina, Spain, Germany, and Italy have remained in that top 13 ever since the onset of COVID. So these are the countries that have been hardest hit. These are the countries we see the first, and then and then on the flip side of things, that China, after having been the country to suffer from it the most, then never made it back into the top 13 after they were able to put these serious controls in the way of operations.
Yeah.
So it's clear to see that those who nipped it in the bud have stayed out of danger for a very long time. Those who are not able to do anything about it in a manner in which would have kept them safe, then have stayed in the numbers of those who have really gotten a hit. Now, linked to that, the World Health Organization is now saying that Europe once again is at the epicenter of the COVID pandemic and has warned that as cases definitely do soar across the continent. So a press conference was given with the World Health Organization European head Hans Kluge, and he said the continent would see 500,000 more deaths by February. And he blamed this on the insufficient vaccine take-up. He says we must change our tactics from reacting to surges of COVID-19 to preventing them from happening in the first place. So the form of attack then is to vaccinate. And we can't say that, all right, what are we going to do? There's a surge in cases now, then we start running after COVID. I remember something Dr. Mercy Correa said in the very beginning of COVID, and she said, you know what, we're already running after this thing, and we've never actually stopped running after COVID. it does something, we run after it. But the way to stop it and to have that pacemaker in place is to vaccinate. The rate of vaccinations has slowed across Europe in recent months, while some 80% of people in Spain are double jabbed. In Germany, it is as low as 66%. They're saying this is really low, far lower in some Eastern European countries. By October, which was last month, only 32% of Russians had been fully vaccinated. Cluj has blamed the relaxation on public health measures for rising infections in the World Health Organization's European Union region, which covers 53 countries, including parts of Central Asia. So far, the World Health Organization has recorded 1.4 million deaths across the region. Now, they're saying the uptake is low when you have countries having done 80%, 66%, 32%. Well, in Kenya, 6.9% now of the population has been vaccinated, up from 6.7% yesterday. So indeed, we're looking at about 80 to 90,000 people being vaccinated on a daily. So
is the West still playing politics with this vaccine?
In terms of what's coming, I mean, there are promises that have been made, but in terms of, again, implementation. And
that whole story about them letting go of the patents so that everybody can manage to get this thing done.
It's
that story.
a story.
They are killing the story. We're going to donate and make you feel that we owe us, and then we'll talk about the vaccine is our best way to protect the population. Anyway,
don't like it.
No. It's 16 minutes after 6. Let's take this quick break so that we can take a look at the weather forecast for Nairobi, for the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And then we'll be looking at newspaper headlines shortly. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Where are you tuned in from this morning? Say hello to us. We'll be saying hello to you shortly. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
Ceci, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. A chance of rain coming in later. Partly cloudy at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 16. Indeed, the forecast is thunderstorms for Nairobi. 15 degrees and mostly clear in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's partly cloudy at 14 in Nyeri, highs of 24 and lows of 14 today. Eldoret is clear at 13, highs of 25 and lows of 13. In Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And Malindi is cloudy at 26 with highs of 31. We'll see lows of 26. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 30 and lows of 19. While we'll see mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega, they'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 16. Clear conditions in Kampala, highs of 29 and lows of 19, and it's raining in Dar es Salaam this morning at 24, highs of 32 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is mostly cloudy at 13, highs of 24 today, and it's raining in Lagos at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 24. Kinshasa, rainy at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 24. Looking out into Beijing, it's sunny at 13, see highs of 15 and lows of 3. It's freezing in Paris at 0. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 7. And cloudy conditions at 11 in London, highs of 15 and lows of 11. Clear conditions in New York Tuesday night, highs of 20 and lows of 12.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right,
94.4 Spice FM.
Very good morning to you. People are online.
Yes, they are. I can see you, but I can't see you. You know what I mean?
Again?
So, good morning. I can see you, sir. You took the first jab of AstraZeneca in August, was to take the second one in November. Apparently, it's out of stock. Oh, my goodness. We need to find out about that.
It's out of stock?
AstraZeneca is out of stock in Kenya. Okay. I can see you who's listening from your warm bed. Well done to you. Good morning. Try and add subtitles every time you're not using English so that you can also accommodate us. Oh, okay. Thanks in advance. We love you in South Africa. Well, thank you very much. Tune in from Doha. So passing your regards to all of us in the studio. We can see you. You're tuned in from Malakal in South Sudan. Okay, 001 is locked this morning. Good morning, Francis from Bamburi in Mombasa. And good morning, tuned in from Mopti. Sevare in Mali. Well, good to have you this morning. Good morning, Situation Room family. 042 tuned in this morning. Hope you had a great night, woken up well this morning. Asante Sana we have. Where is CT? CT is a bit under the weather. I'm sure he'll be back in good time with us. Imara Daima is locked. Mount Kenya University tuned in this morning. Good morning to you too. Yellow and morning sunshine from Zambia. Asante Sana. Good morning from Milimani Nakuru. Charity, we see you. Good morning from County 019, County 19. Machai is also tuned in. And Bago is tuning from Mombasa. Abdir Kadir Abdallah tuned in this morning from Komarok. And Nixon Otieno says, good morning, Eric and Ndu. Tuned in from South Sea. Where is CT? Again, he'll be back with us soon. He's not feeling too well right now, but he'll be all right.
Yes. Welcome to the show. We will be here. We will be with you until the end of the show at 10 a.m. Today's proverb is from Rwanda. So this is a Rwandese proverb. So at what point does it become Rwandan and when does it become Rwandese? When do you say Rwandan and when do you say Rwandese?
That's interesting.
Rwandan president.
Rwandese, I think, is when you're referring to the people.
And Rwandan is when it refers to what?
I don't know. Kenya Rwanda, maybe when you're referring to the language.
It's not Rwanda's economy. It's Rwanda's economy.
It's Rwanda's economy.
All right. And Rwandan president.
I think, I have to give that as a think. I have to think about this one. Because there's certain things that you would not say Rwandese, you would say Rwandan. Yeah.
Okay. This one
case,
is a Rwandese proverb.
Voila.
A large eye does not mean keen vision. A large eye does not mean keen vision. So they say. In the land of 1,000 hills.
So they say.
Yes. Let's take a look at the newspaper headlines. Remember, you can access the Standard e-paper from wherever you are around the world on the standardmedia.co.ke. Just get in there and get the Standard e-paper. Subscribe. It's 20 shillings daily. You have access to all the premium content on the paper. You also have access to free Sudoku, free crossword puzzle, and access to the Standard Media archives. What are you looking at in the papers?
So you know how you thought that something was finished and it's over?
Yeah.
And we're done with that and we moved on to something else.
Yes.
Well, apparently the folks with BBI, like with the dog with a bone, final prayers for BBI as Supreme Court sets issues to be determined. So apparently we're still going on with this thing, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the court had dismissed calls for 3 judges to step aside. There was, the call for certain judges to recuse themselves because of what looked like some kind of personal interest. That didn't happen. It allowed 8 individuals to help in reaching the decision. The last battle to salvage the BBI got underway yesterday when the Supreme Court singled out 7 disputed issues that could break or restore the constitutional amendment process. A full bench of the Apex Court first put its house in order by issuing 3 rulings, giving directions on the filing of submissions and setting aside 3 days in January next year when the parties will present and argue their cases. Unlike in other proceedings where the parties set their own issues, which they asked the court to determine, the Apex Court judges said they decided to come up with the issues and allow parties to file their submissions to support in support or against them. So according to the judge's ruling, having gone through the appeals and the responses, the court is of the considered view that the 7 issues are what form the basis of the BBI appeals and which the parties need to address us on in their submissions. In addition to the issues they want to determine is the basic structure doctrine, whether it is applicable in Kenya and whether the constitution can only be changed by following 4 steps in sequence. Number 1, civic education. 2, public participation. 3, constituent assembly debate, and a referendum. So, both the High Court and the Court of Appeal declared the basic structure principle is applicable in Kenya, and declared the BBI as unconstitutional for seeking to alter it without following the required order that I've just given you. The Supreme Court judges have also blamed, or rather framed, President Uhuru Kenyatta's involvement in the BBI process as an issue for determination, given that the Court of Appeal found that the president has no power to initiate a popular initiative to amend the constitution. So these are the issues for determination that will be argued in January, whether basic structure doctrine is applicable in Kenya and if it limits the power to amend the constitution, whether the president can initiate changes to the constitution by popular initiative, whether a proposal to create 70 new constituencies is unconstitutional, whether civil proceedings can be instituted against a sitting president, place of public participation in amending the constitution and whether the BBI complied with it, minimum quorum required for the IEBC to conduct business, and whether each proposed constitutional change should be submitted as a separate referendum question. So the Supreme Court came and said, okay, we are not going to determine. You come help us determine what we will be discussing or arguing back and forth come January. And
So they've agreed that these are the 7
these are the
issues
that we need to talk about.
Similar issues that were there in the Court of Appeal one day.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, now.
Now that you've cleared your throat like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember there was a sad story a couple of days ago of a family that was heading for a funeral of their in-laws.
Yes.
In Nakuru. There was a man, there was his wife, and there were 2 daughters. They were going to Nakuru for a funeral. Then just as they were heading there, they were involved in an accident, and the man, the wife, the 2 daughters perished, and the man's one of the grandchildren was taken to hospital. Now, one of the daughters who was married has already been buried. She was buried at her matrimonial home on Monday. The man, the wife, and the other daughter are yet to be buried. Why? Because, so let me tell you who the people are. 77-year-old William Kamau, his wife Jane Njoki, who was 63, their daughters Rod and Jerry, who was 40, and Evelyn Waithera, who was 37. Now, Jerry, who was 40, is the one who's been buried. Evelyn, who was 37, plus their mother, Njoki, plus their father, Kamau, not yet. Because Kamau's stepmother, Hannah Njeri, has obtained restraining orders stopping his burial as well as that of Njoki and Waithera over a prolonged land dispute at their ancestral 4-acre home in Gaturi, Murang'a. Murang'a Principal Magistrate Edwin Nyaga issued the orders restraining Kamau's immediate family from interring his remains in the farm. The orders were served to Kamau's first wife, Eunice Wanjiko, and his sons, Anthony Rongo, Muthui Kamau, and Maina Kamau. They were given on the strength of an ongoing succession dispute in Nairobi court, pitting the Kamaus against their stepmother. The orders were issued on November 5th, but Kamau's immediate family said they only became aware of them yesterday and had not been officially served with the same. The magistrate had scheduled for a hearing between all parties on Thursday. Yesterday, the villagers in Murang'a were preparing the graves of the 3 as the family insisted it had not received any order from the court stopping the burial. The family had been entangled in land disputes since 2006. So it's basically the stepmother of this 77-year-old man who is the one who's gone to court to block his
her
burial.
stepson from being buried until
Yes.
they figure out the land dispute.
Yes. It's a 4-acre piece of land, and there has been a dispute on succession.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question. Does it stop? Does the dispute come to an end? Is the land awarded if he's not buried?
No, you need to finish the dispute.
Before you can bury him?
Yeah. Because it determines, so do we own this land together? Do we own it jointly? Are we splitting this piece of land? And if we split, where will you end up being buried?
Did he have a will?
You see, the will doesn't really matter.
There was a dispute before.
The dispute is whether he is an heir to this piece of land.
Sheesh.
It's between him and his stepmother. That
Yeah.
means his side, his mother's side, and the stepmother's side. Who has access to this?
Who does it belong to?
Yes.
Wow, my goodness.
Yes. Because of that, the man and his wife and his daughter will
Not buried.
Yeah, will not be buried for a while. It's 6:30. Let's take a quick break and take a look at the traffic, and then we'll look at more newspaper headlines. Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM, and broadcasting on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here.
And it has built up quite some on Uhuru Highway this morning, getting into the city. Nothing too crazy right about now. Mombasa Road also a little bit, pockets of traffic here and there, but it seems to be moving without too much of an issue. Industrial area also clearance free, in and out of industrial area and into the city, at least for now. It looks pretty good. Joggo Road is building up quite some as you're going into the city, but nothing crazy. Hopefully it's that Wednesday where we'll be able to get in and out without too much of an issue. We're seeing some traffic on the Thika Superhighway though, round about the Pangani underpass and then going into the CBD. Apart from that, honestly guys, it looks pretty good. Enjoying a free ride this morning, do so on the bypasses of Southern, Eastern, Northern and the Red Hill Link Road coming out of Westlands. Let's look in other parts of the country in a short while. Spice FM KE on Twitter, let us know what it is that you see. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So, beer border prices set to rise. Consumers could pay more for bottled water, juice, motorcycles, beer and other items after the Kenya Revenue Authority increased excise duty on items to cover for inflation on collected taxes. KRA raised duty on excisable goods by 4.9% in the average, in line with the average annual inflation for the financial year that ended in June. The taxman, however, excluded duty on fuel after the High Court suspended an increment on petroleum products on September 27th, pending determination of the case filed by two Kenyans, Isaiah Odando and Wilson Yatta. The adjustment was to be from October 1st, but when paused by the court injunction, KRA had targeted about 3.7 billion in addition to revenue from inflation adjusted taxation this fiscal year that ends in June 2022. The rates of duty on excisable goods have been adjusted using the average inflation rate for the 2020-2021 financial year. This was according to KRA Commissioner for Domestic Taxes, Rispa Simiu, and she informed importers and manufacturers, adding that the taxes took effect on the 2nd of November. So essentially, of course, as usual, it goes to the end user and you're going to have to pay more for these goods. It's in line with the Excise Duty Act, she says, and it demands that rates be revised in tandem with inflation. So as inflation goes up, excise duty goes up. So that's why some of these things, you have no choice but to apply it to the end users. Could pay more for as much as 5.7 shillings for a litre of beer, and the new duty has been fixed at 121. The price of fruit and vegetable juice will rise after KRA raised excise duty by 0.5 of shilling, 5% per litre to 12.17. Spirits has gone up by 13 shillings per litre and now attracts a duty of 208, a rise of 9.86 shillings.
You know, there's has been this conversation about excise duty and in some cases syntax, what's called syntax. So on products that are considered luxury products, such as beer, cigarettes and such, you can say, well, this is not something that you must really buy. Yeah. But then there's some products that you must really buy. When now motorbikes have become a you must really have. Because they are not just a luxury item. There's a time when motorbikes were, you know, you buy a motorbike because you... no, it no longer is that.
As a dependable, reliable form of transportation, it is, yes.
So there has to be a conversation about looking at how to separate some of these items and saying when excise duty is applied or when some of these duties are applied, they're actually going to end up hurting more than just the person whom you're levying directly. Because if it goes up on motorbikes, it means many people are relying on motorbikes as the mode of transport. The cost of transport goes up, and it has an impact on that. Now, there's a story in the business section of the Standard today, page 27. Absa Bank has been ordered to pay a judge $1 million shillings after her debit card was rejected while shopping in the US. The bank, previously Barclays Bank, had moved to the High Court to try and overturn a 2017 decision by a magistrate's court to award Justice Helen Wasilwa of the Employment and Labour Relations Court 5 million shillings for what she termed, and the magistrate agreed with her, defamation. Justice Said Juma Chitembwe has reduced this award, arguing that the rejection of the debit card does not amount to defamation. Instead, he found that the rejection of the card, which Wasilwa argued caused her embarrassment, pressure, anxiousness, and discomfort, amounted to a breach of contract. The judge said the bank had a duty to ensure that the customer could access her money. Given the circumstances of the case, I do find that a sum of $1 million shillings is sufficient damages for the embarrassment, the pressure, the anxiousness, and discomfort suffered by the respondent. This, in my view, sufficiently compensates the respondent for the breach of contract by the bank. Justice Wasilwa had told the court that on September 19, 2015, she used her debit card to buy goods worth $988. That's 110,000 bob by that time at the Ross shop in the US, but the transaction was declined. 6 days later, she did more shopping at the Mill store, and once again, her card was declined. She told the court that she had been a prestigious customer at the bank since 1988, and before traveling abroad, had confirmed with the lender that she could use the debit card. Wasilwa told the bank, tried to reach the bank, but there was no response. She tried to run her card again. It was declined. At this time, she told the court, the customers at the store were looking at her suspiciously. You black woman, whose card are you bringing? The staff even summoned the security, who stood at strategic corners of the store ready to pounce on her. The supermarket was full, and the customers could read the word declined from the cashier's screen, which embarrassed her, she said. It was her case that she did undergo distress and embarrassment due to both incidents, and as a consequence, her character, credit, and reputation were negatively affected. Besides claiming that Wasilwa did not provide enough evidence, such as declined receipts, to support her case, Absa had argued that the word declined could not be understood by those who saw it on the teller's machine to mean that she was not in a position to meet her personal financial obligation. In any case, the bank said, Wasilwa did not provide witnesses to validate her allegations.
So they're not denying that she was not able to use her card. They're saying that the tenets of her
show us the
arguments.
receipts.
Yes, show us.
There's like, listen, you're saying it was declined. Show us that receipt
But
showing
also
it
in their
was
system,
declined.
it will be able to show whether. she
Yeah,
tried
but
to
you
run her
bring the
card, it
receipt
was
showing that
declined.
it was declined.
Mhm.
You're saying it was written there declined. So if it's written declined, people don't understand that to mean that you're not able to pay. What do they understand?
Of course, that's what they say. When they see decline and you try to use your card to purchase, they think number one, woo, no funds in this account, or it's not her card, and maybe she's using somebody else's card.
And here
How many
you are
things go
about
through
to spend
people's minds?
$1,000.
No. I agree. No, quite embarrassing.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Now she's been awarded 1 million shillings.
Yeah. Try to shop 3 times 100,000. No.
It's embarrassing. It's totally embarrassing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, things that happened at KEMSA. 581 phantom workers have been on the payroll of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority for years. The latest report shows KEMSA had 922 staff on its payroll, more than 170% above its approved worker establishment of 341. Okay?
So, KEMSA is supposed to have 381 workers.
341 workers.
41 workers.
Different roles and responsibilities allocated 1, 2, 3 should not go beyond 341.
According to the organogram.
Yes.
This 381
Here we need
slots.
17, here we need 40, here we need 50, here we need 6.
Okay.
341. However,
Huh?
there were 922.
Yeah.
Details are contained in a report released by the recently named Action Plan and Medium-Term Reforms Working Committee. So this committee that was set up by Stella Mwandime, and then they're working on sorting all of these things out. They found out, hold on a minute, we're paying some 600 people who don't exist. The task force also said KEMSA failed to meet market demands. The agency is suffering from below par productivity, with the order fill rate standing at 18%. Against a target performance of more than 90%. Kenya's order turnaround time is an average of 46 days, a month and a half, according to this report. Out of the 11,000 orders made to KEMSA this year, you want to take a guess how many were ordered and serviced?
Well, this year the KEMSAs have been having issues.
11,000. Do
Out
you
of
know
how
how
many?
many they serviced?
Out of how many received?
11,000 orders.
Received.
How
This
many?
is across the country?
Yes. How many do you think were serviced?
5.
5 what? 5,000.
5.
No, they did a little bit better than
Uh-huh.
that. 345 were serviced. So
Okay.
that leaves you with some 10,655 not completely serviced.
Okay.
The authority is owed 6.4 billion shillings, a total debt, and has a total debt of 4.5 billion. The board chairperson, it's Mary Mwadime, said the agency is unable to meet clients' needs, particularly delivery of essential drugs and medical kits. KEMSA is largely underperforming. This has endangered the lives of Kenyans, she said. She added that the order to staff to work from home is a procedural formality to facilitate the review of organizational structure. Governors yesterday resolved to engage alternate suppliers for drugs to avoid shortages. The resolution follows the laying off of more than 900 KEMSA employees. So as they've been able, you remember that thing you were saying, like, we need to find out what's going on here, ask the staff to go home so we can figure it out. It seems that the figuring out is already happening at rapid rates because they figured out quite a lot in the last 2 weeks, ghost workers, order forms not being completed, under capacity, over-resourced in terms of human resource. I mean, suddenly all of these things are coming to light.
Tread carefully. This is too fast.
I'm telling you.
They're moving
less
just
than
too
2
fast.
weeks. You found out all these things and nobody knew them before.
How? It's impossible.
11,000
You're
orders
raising
only.
questions. Well, 11,000 orders. I immediately can see why many orders were not serviced. How much are they owed?
4.5 billion.
Yeah.
No. They're owed 6.5 billion. They owe 4.5 billion.
They're owed 6.5 billion shillings.
Yes.
So obviously, some of these 11,000 orders are from people who already owe them. And we already know that this is an issue. Counties have been placing orders, and KEMSA has been saying, until you pay us, we're not releasing. So I can see a correlation here. Yes, you have placed an order, but
I can't service it.
I can't service it because,
yeah.
right? And there's the whole issue even Muthui Kagwe asking KEMSA, please just
give us.
Just
We'll
release to
sort
the
you out.
counties.
Yeah.
They'll find a way of paying. That's one. Now, the issue of the workforce being 3 times what's approved on paper, that's there are things about
600 people milling around the authority.
How?
Yeah? Or
Around
in this case, not milling around because they're ghost workers. They don't exist.
They do exist. But you've just said 900 people went home.
This is the thing.
They wrote letters to 600 people.
So how could they be phantom workers? How did they send home 900? And of those 900, only 341 are supposed to be there.
They wrote letters. There are people who have been working. So the thing
So you sent home phantom workers.
This could be the first question that is raised. Okay, so we have all these people. How did we get to employ them? Not that they are phantom. How did they get employed? Yet our HR policy and guidelines had already capped it at 300. According to what we have as, the job structure, we have slots for 300 people. How did we get to? Those are questions that you could be asking, but not saying that you don't actually have human beings.
Or in this case, no human beings. Because,
Yes.
you sent a number of people
You can't
home, and
say
that
that
has
those
been the
are
number.
not-
Since we saw this about a week and a half ago, that has been the number.
You could find ghost workers were there in City Hall for many years, and there were all those explanations. Somebody has already left service, but their name is Teal. Somebody has passed away, but their name is Teal on the payroll. In this particular case, we have had many people looking into KEMSA over the last couple of years. So for us to actually get a 300% ghost worker, that's very high. I think those are questions that are emerging, and then those questions may have some answers. And those questions could also now say, as we move forward, let's stick strictly to what we had already set aside and said,
Right.
these are the job functions, and these are the positions that are available. So we're only going to fill the available positions, 300 and whatever, bus. Everybody else declared redundant. It's just basically preparing us for the number of people that are going to be declared redundant at KEMSA. 600 plus are going home.
Sheesh.
The family of Agnes Wanjiru has instructed renowned law firm Lay
Of course.
to sue the British Ministry of Defence over the alleged cover-up of the murder at the hands of soldiers training in Nanyuki 9 years ago. Wanjiru was reportedly last seen in the company of 2 soldiers at Lions Court Hotel before she disappeared on March 31st, 2012. The family has reiterated its resolve to seek justice for their kin, with Lay Day preparing to commence proceedings. The top command of the British Army training unit in Kenya was allegedly informed of the murder when it happened, but it did nothing about it. I can confirm we are instructed and we are investigating a potential judicial review challenging the Ministry of Defence's failure to investigate Wanjiru's death. The family wants to find out exactly what happened to Agnes. They also want allegations of cover-up to be investigated. Tessa Gregory, a partner at the firm, told The Nation. John Moshiri, the brother-in-law, added, "We are more than ready and willing to be enjoined in the suit that is being pushed by the British firm. What we are yearning for is justice for Wanjiru." Lay Day has in the past won cases against the governments of the UK and Japan, as well as Shell, BP, Trafigura in environmental and human rights cases. The firm gained popularity in Kenya in 2010 after it represented some 5,000 Mau Mau war veterans in a suit against the British government for atrocities meted out during the independence war in the 50s. The veterans were awarded £19.9 million in compensation. The government has also twice been compelled to pay 1,300 people who were seriously injured or killed by exploding bombs. The payments were done in 2003 and 2004 after Lay Day negotiated the settlements. The suit alongside an ongoing criminal investigation in 9 soldiers linked to Wanjiru's murder. Lay Day, they are the same ones who had the issue with the Kakuzi.
Yes.
The other day. They have a track record
of delivering.
Ah.
They deliver.
Whether in
Truth
court,
will be
whether
told.
out of court,
Settlement.
a settlement will happen.
Duke it out in court is okay.
Yes.
It's true. They have a track record of actually making sure that either compensation is given or, at the very least, the argument is heard and both sides then come to an agreement thereafter.
Taken all giants, BP, Trafigura. And they have gotten something out of them.
Yep.
Bas. This one, there's justice for Wanjiru is coming.
Interesting to see.
Justice for Wanjiru is coming. A quick break,
Okay.
Okay, a quick breather and then we look at some more newspaper headlines shortly. Good morning. It is 11 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. This morning with Eric Latiff and Ndu Okoh.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
So there's a matter of 100 million shillings in an inheritance case, right?
100 million shillings. Okay.
2 key witnesses in a succession case involving 100 million shillings in an estate have died. The High Court in Nakuru has been told. The case pits Susan Nyambura, who is 74, against her niece, Lucy Wajiko, who is 52. They're fighting over the estate of German tycoon Joseph Littmann, who died in August 2001 without a will. Wajiko claims she was the German's only wife and wants her aunt locked out of the estate. But Nyambura has maintained she was also married to Littmann and wants a share of the estate. Are you with me so far? Now,
so there are 2 women who claim that they were both married to the same man.
Yes.
Okay.
Both of them claiming auntie and niece, both married to the same man.
Oh, it's auntie and niece.
It's auntie and niece, my friend. Right. This is where the waters get muddy.
Right.
All right. This is reported in the Standard today. Now, Wajiko moved to court in 2001 seeking orders to evict Nyambura from Littmann's house and to block her from inheriting his property.
Who's the auntie between Wajiko and Nyambura?
Okay, so Nyambura is 74, she's the auntie.
Okay.
Wajiko is 52, she's the niece.
Okay.
All right. Now, Wajiko said no. Auntie out. Tuesday, when the case came up for hearing, Justice Hilary Chimetel heard that Francis Waweru and Lucy Wairimo, Nyambura's siblings, and her main witnesses died on September 17th and 23rd, respectively. This September now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Her lawyer, Owino Oenga, said the deaths have jolted his client's case and asked the court to allow him replace the witnesses, a prayer that the court has granted. They were Nyambura's siblings who knew her and attended all her ceremonies, including Nyambura's dowry ceremony and her marriage to Littmann. So the auntie now had siblings who saw her marry this man. Now they've died. How are they going to be able to say what had happened? The lawyer said it is a setback because they were the closest relatives to my clients. At the time, Nyambura's third witness also got ill and is mentally not in a good condition to testify. So everybody that would have helped Auntie Nyambura, not there. He urged the court to allow him replace the 3 witnesses with 2 witnesses because without them, his case, he would be in a tight spot. His prayer was granted and an adjournment was allowed so that he could replace the 3 witnesses. Now, this is what Littmann has left behind that these 2 are fighting over. 5,178 acres of land.
What?
Houses, hotels, vehicles, boreholes, machinery, businesses, and 2,000 shares in Ukingoni Farm Limited. There was no administrator. By November 2001, all the properties together have been valued at 100 million shillings. Nyambura and Wajiko have been fighting for control of the property since August 2001. Yes?
How many acres of land?
5,178.
And all that plus hotels, plus everything else, plus
houses
shares are valued at 100 million.
Yes.
How much? How
I
much?
don't know where this land is.
5,000 acres of land.
Yeah. Should
Wait.
be more than. Should be more than. It could be, even if the houses are on said land. Should be more than. It should be more than. However, it's 100 million. That's their problem right now. They've been fighting for the last 20 years. Wajiko says she was Littmann's only wife. And Nyambura has said no. My auntie was only a house help. But she has been delusional to a point of claiming that she was even married to a Mzungu. Nyambura, in her testimony on the 29th of July, accused Wajiko of betraying her by snatching her husband. She testified that she took Wajiko in while she was still a minor, raised her and paid her school fees, only for her to betray her by wanting to take her husband. My niece had an affair with my late husband, even after I took her into my house and raised her as my own child. She said following their affair, Littman divorced her and married Wajiko, and they had 2 children. Do you see now where all of this is coming to light? Documents presented in court show Littman and Wajiko got married in June 1995. Nyambura insisted that she married him first under Kikuyu customary law.
So the auntie says she was married before the niece.
But
the niece
she has
says,
nothing.
and the auntie says, I was married and I brought in my niece
Yes.
as a young child to come and live with me.
Yes.
The niece says, in fact, you are just working for us.
I'm the wife.
I'm the wife.
Here's my document. We even have children. Nyambura said, no, Kikuyu customary law, I married him first. You came and stole him by virtue of the fact that I gave you a place to live and I was paying your school fees.
And you were younger.
Do you see now the problem?
Way.
February 9th is when they're going to hear this next year.
Oi.
Let's see.
There's some excitement in Kakamega because they are going to be golden soon. Plans by the government to build 100 million shillings gold refinery in Kakamega have excited thousands of small-scale miners. Early this year, multinational with mining interests in Kenya and Tanzania announced the discovery of huge gold deposits in western Kenya. Ikolomani has become a busy constituency as residents chase the golden dream. Artisanal miners use makeshift gadgets to scoop heaps of soil from tunnels which run up to 30 meters deep in search of the precious metal. Several homesteads have been turned into heaps of rocks, which are then crushed and sieved for traces of gold. Nuo, a Chinese company, has been picked to construct the refinery on a 12.25-acre parcel in Liandambitsa, near River Yala. The refinery is expected to serve the Lake Region Economic Bloc. It will be the first state-owned gold processor in Kenya. Nuo will target Kakamega, Siaya, Migori and Kisii counties in the initial stages of this operation. Kakamega miners are expected to deliver more than 500 kilos of gold a year. Siaya, 300 kilos and a ton from Migori County. 1,000 kilos from Migori. The refinery is expected to start working in a year. A small-scale miner usually gets about 4,400 per gram of gold sold to middlemen. Nuo will increase this amount to 6,200. The farm will help miners get modern equipment. I can now see where the 6,000 money is going to come from. Kumbe, there's a plan.
Touché, monsieur. But now, I must ask you, this is not the first time that we've heard about this gold coming out of Ikolomani and certain parts of Western Kenya. What has been the hold-up previously that now, all of this planning now, it has come to a head?
Now the government has given the contract to Nuo.
Okay, the contract has been awarded. Now carry on.
And they've been told now you guys are going to get the gold and you're going to refine the gold. Initially, what was just seeing is this artisanal miners just going, getting, and then selling to middlemen, and then the middlemen find their way where they're going to sell it to. It comes to Nairobi as wash. I don't know how it goes. But this is what has been happening. Now, we have a company. This company is licensed, and there's also now going to be revenue share between the national government and the county. Royalty money is going to 20%, 8% of the proceeds will be paid as royalty to the government. 20% will go to the county, in whichever county.
C'est bon, I think. Okay, finally.
This is this whole
kicks
thing.
Off. Hey.
This whole thing.
Why does it always have to be dependent on whether there will be implementation? It will be a great thing for these counties if it actually plays out the way it has been planned.
Yep.
Or we could be talking about this in the next
And as we're
5
talking
years.
about all these things, by the way, remember the other time when we had a conversation about this was what is being used for the refinery for cleaning of this, right? And how it ended up getting into the river and cows dying. Remember the story that was there a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
And the National Environment Management Authority and everybody else coming there and saying, but
hold on a minute.
We don't know how this happened. Now,
this is how it's happened.
Let's see how NEMA actually manages this whole process to make sure that as Nuo gets on the ground and starts putting up the machines, they are going to take care of the environment. It's very, very important.
Indeed.
Keep it here for more stories. There are very many interesting stories in the papers today. We'll be looking at some of them again in the next hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Here in Mombasa, we are locked until the last show of space. What is Bago Jackson saying?
I don't know. But he's here. Bago
Locked
says
until
the last
show.
In this space.
Bas.
He's locked. He's watching this space.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in, Bago, and everybody else who's also joining us online from wherever you are, either around the country or around the world. There's South Africa, yes, we know. There's Zambia, yes, we know. There's America, yes, we know. There's New Zealand. We've seen you as well. We've seen also people from China saying that they are tuned in. A very good morning to you. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Asset. Attorney General Paul Kihara and IG Hillary Muthui will summit to appeal in court tomorrow to explain why terror suspect Gilgiva Bwire and his lawyer Hassan Nando weren't produced in court last Friday. These as the DCI is offering a 10 million shillings reward for information on 5 terrorism suspects who include Bwire, Salni Mohammed, Trevor Ndwiga, Mohammed Abubakar and Barigi Haila. Tells about missing terrorist convict Bwire took a new twist after the state announced that he'd gone underground, is armed and dangerous and put a bounty on his head. Bwire alongside his lawyer Nandwa and his mother were taken by unknown persons on the same day, but Nandwa and the rest except him have since been released. Parents to students who continue to participate in school arsons will cater for the expenses of renovating or rebuilding the properties that have been destroyed. Education PS Julius John has retweeted that the ministry won't change its stand on the matter.
It is also good that we make it very clear. Any school where the learners burn the school property, the government will not provide money to rebuild the classrooms or to rebuild the dormitories. That cost will be borne by the parents or the learners who have committed the crime. You cannot have the government putting us classrooms, money that could have gone to help in other areas, and then somebody comes to destroy and expects the same government to put in money. We appeal to parents to engage their children, to talk to their children so that they appreciate that they've gone to school to learn.
Meanwhile, Education CIS Sarah Ruto says failure by parents to punish their children whenever they go wrong has contributed to the rise in cases of school unrest. She says it is time parents rise to the occasion and support teachers in disciplining their children.
Ladies and gentlemen, other than competencies, we have to ensure that our children have character, because competencies without character will come to naught. It will not help us at all.
This as Kupet has now proposed that students be allowed to go on a break from December 10th to give them time to rest. Despite the ministry announcing midterm holiday from November 19th to the 23rd, Kupet recommends that the calendar be revised to reduce the number of activities that are said to cause such incidents. According to Kupet Secretary Laikipia Branch Robert Miano, students have failed to embrace this new calendar, which was occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking in Nyahururu, Miano lamented that the situation has caused students to suffer from stress, so there is a need for the calendar to be adjusted.
This issue of closing the school in the month of December 23rd, it is really causing a lot of problems. It is causing a lot of anxieties because the students know and they believe they are supposed to be at home over the holiday. December ni wakati wa sherehe. So what we can request the government from the month of December 10th, from 10th, that is what teachers are saying, from 10th iwe holiday, watoto waende nyumbani, wakae huko kama wiki mbili. There is no need of learning. We are just moving fast without knowing even where we are going.
We switch gears to matters politics, and the ODM party now wants Deputy President William Ruto to publicly acknowledge that he will accept the results of the next general election if he is defeated by Raila Odinga. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna has claimed that Ruto has begun to show concern and should therefore announce whether he will accept the results after they are announced.
Na mimi nimeanza kuwa na wasiwasi
I want William Ruto to assure this country that he will accept the results of the elections of August 2022. Because baba, tumeanza kuona all signs. Kwa sababu pia vile hawa ndugu zetu wa Ukambani wameona dalili. Hata Ruto ameona dalili. Tayari amejua hii kitu imeenda. Sasa ameanza kuleta shida ili akatae matokeo ya uchaguzi. Tunataka tumwambie we want an assurance from the official leader of oppositions from 2022, William Ruto, that he will accept the decision of Kenyans to make Raila Amolo Odinga the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya.
Sifuna's statement comes weeks after Ruto announced he would accept the result only if he was legitimately defeated, with some insiders urging Odinga as well to announce his acceptance of the results.
Sasa wakuje na system, wakuje na deep state, sisi tuko tayari, tunawangojea na Mungu na wananchi. Hawa ambao mnawadharau hawa makanga, hawa wa bodaboda, yule wa kiosk, ndio tutaunda nao serikali 2022.
From Standard Media Group Limited, we call on politicians to stop attacking each other and instead work together and enable the IEBC to ensure that the next general election is free and fair. Now, the Council of Governors now wants several changes to be made in KEMSA to be more beneficial to the county. Counties rely on KEMSA to ensure that health services in the county are not affected. Among the recommendations from the Council of Governors is to reform the Imports Department to be accountable to county governments the same way it is to the national government. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Okay, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and it looks like what was happening before is no longer the situation, because traffic has built up on the Thika Superhighway this morning, and quite some going all the way then towards Pangani. From what we last saw, it wasn't going to be too crazy, but that has changed now. Jogoo Road also built up quite some as you're getting onto Landis Road today, Huru Highway as well. Nothing too bad coming off from Gong Road and going into the city. Bagathi Way looks pretty good today. But we're going to get a lot of feed off of traffic coming off of the mess that is on Langata Road today right now. Uhuru Highway also looks pretty crazy at that South Sea turn-off. Jogoo Road, guys, wow. At the Makadara train station, that's moving very slowly. We're looking at the Outer Ring subway station as well. Some traffic coming off there and getting onto Outer Ring this morning. That's what it looks like right now. Not too crazy at the moment. Hopefully it remains just so. If it doesn't, talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, how are you doing? Thank you for choosing Spice FM as your station of choice. And The Situation Room is the only way to start your day. In the room this morning is Eric Latiff and Ndu Okoh. C.T. Muga is a little bit under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Today's proverb: a large eye does not mean keen vision. A large eye does not mean keen vision. This is a proverb from Rwanda. Yes. Interesting things in the papers, like we said. Interesting things that are happening in the country. We are seeing a lot of political talk, left, right, and center. Yeah?
Yes. So, the Wiper Democratic Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, will scrap interest on university loans, make secondary and university education free in Kenya as president.
Secondary and university education free?
Free.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. He said university students were inundated with loans, deplorable living conditions in hostels, and slim prospects of landing decent jobs after graduation. The former vice president has promised grants to neediest students, make university education free of charge, and leverage Kenya's skilled manpower to make the country a labor exporter. He yesterday met student leaders from public universities at the SKM Command Center in Karen. The young leaders belong to the Kenya University Students Association. Kalonzo rallied the about 100 student leaders to back his bid, making a promise to introduce grants for university education and making Kenya a large-scale labour exporter. The Wiper Party leader is expected to meet his party's endorsement to vie for president at a national delegates conference planned for later this month. The moment I get that ticket, he said, join me as we cross the length and breadth of this country to tell Kenyans we can't afford to make a mistake. We will make sure there is free secondary education and we have a working nation. Kenyans do not want to get to the days of handout politics and economics. Kalonzo said that there were exploitable minerals that could fund free university education. Okay. He said a study was conducted that showed 38% of Kenyan youth had desire to work outside the country. He also went on to say, we will sign bilateral labor agreements for our workers as long as they don't get abused like in the Arab world. The Philippines, he said, earned more from foreign remittance than commodities it produced locally. He desires the same for Kenya, to provide jobs locally and abroad for Kenyans who desired it. But Kalonzo said those plans would only come to fruition once the youth stop seeing themselves from an ethnic lens and put him in the seat.
Bas. So this particular promise this time is on education.
Yes.
Free secondary and university education. Mm-hmm. So is it free secondary and university education or is it reducing HELB loans?
Removing the interest completely on these loans is what he said. So I'm a bit confused. It's both.
So it's reducing the interest, scrapping the interest on loans given by HELB in its entirety and make it a grant.
Yes. So why would you need a grant if school was free?
That's actually what it is.
Because
a grant you don't pay.
No. But it's like you're still being given something to be able to attend school.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But the thought is that you can just rock up at school and there's no grants that you have to submit. Or
that's
whatever.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's free.
It's free.
You're being given money that you will not be asked to pay. Huh?
You're being given money to go and pay for school.
Yes.
So school is not free.
No, it is free. It's just like now with the primary school education and all, there's capitation. Mm-hmm. There's money that goes from the government.
But it comes from the government to pay for the
directly
school. So it is free in the sense it's free that you don't have to get the money to take it to institution.
Yes.
Okay. These things can be done. I'm asking.
Well, yeah.
Okay. The question is, why are they not being done now?
Because they're not in power.
Okay.
You see,
so
is Kalonzo the president?
Oh no. So if he were the president, these things would have happened.
That's what he wants to do now. If you made him the president, he says he will scrap the interest on loans given by the Higher Education Loans Board in its entirety and make it a grant.
But because
university education is going to be free. Free primary, free secondary. You know, Jubilee made it free day secondary school. Free day secondary. Now it's free secondary.
All across.
And free university.
Okay. My problem is that...
Why do you have a problem with things that are free?
Do you see how you put words in my mouth? I don't have a problem with things that are free. My problem is this. In as much as it's a wonderful thing, why have these things not come out before? What stops them from being done? And why does it have to be tied to somebody being president? I know that, of course, it gives you some kind of leverage to say that, you know what, here I have this brilliant idea. It can only come to be if you put me in that position.
Yeah.
If you really did care and say that you've been in positions whereby you can influence. You are currently in a position where you can influence your brothers and sisters who are there right now. And I'm saying, it doesn't matter whether it's Kalonzo today, or Ruto tomorrow, or Raila the next day. You're in a position right now when you can influence those who hold the instruments of power to get something done, but you choose not to because there's no president before you.
No, that's a moot argument.
It's not.
No.
You don't do it because you need it to be attached to your name.
It's like saying when Joe Biden was promising all those things he was promising, you should have asked him, but you've been a senator for all those years. That's what people are saying. But he was like, I am not the president. But you were vice president just 4 years ago. Okay, but I want to be president now so that I can do these things. We did this. We achieved this. Every time, even a president, they're seeking re-election, he says, I'm going to do. If you re-elect me, I am going to do. When Uhuru Kenyatta was seeking re-election, he was saying, I am going to do. Over and above what I have done, I also want to do.
It doesn't preclude you from saying
No,
that,
it does.
No, it doesn't. From saying that, in a position of influence that you had previously, what is it that you have done? Eric, any job, even if it is the most menial of jobs, they will ask you, what is it that you have done before that I can now say, okay, upon this, then I'll say, actually, you know what you're saying makes sense. And then we can now give you an opportunity to go further on.
But that's what I'm saying, Ndu. You see, when you go for a job interview today, let's say that there was a vacancy for a job here in the Standard Group for position of programs controller, okay? And you went for that interview. Would it be fair for the interviewing panel to ask you, but you have been there, you have worked in SpiceFM since it started. I mean, why haven't you you'll be saying, if I became PC, I could do this, I would do this, I would do the other. Why aren't you doing them now? But you are not the PC, right? That's exactly the same thing. All these people who are seeking our votes today are saying, I will do. And if you ask them, why aren't you doing them now? They'll tell you, I'm not doing them now because I'm not in office. I'm not in office.
What assurances do you then have?
Now, those are different. Now that's another conversation.
What assurances do you then have that given this person has been put in this position, that they will actually do these things that they're saying?
That's now.
How then do you
differentiate? That's now the thing. Now,
how then do you differentiate between carrot dangling in order to get somebody's vote and a pure intention to have these things done?
If you were sitting in an interviewing panel, and every candidate came and they were saying this and the other, this is what I would do with this position if you give me this job, what assurances do you have? What assurances, what guarantees would you put to make sure that what this person says matches, first of all, with what you need? Because you've got a requirement. You're the one who advertised for this job, right? You're the one who advertised this position and said, we're looking for, and this position is supposed to do this, and the other. Now, you, as you're sitting on the interviewing panel, you're looking and judging the person's ability. Do they, first of all, understand the organization? Do they understand the job? Do they understand the role? Do they understand the requirements that
So then I would ask you, in previous positions that you've held, what are some of the things then that you've been able to do? Not necessarily this exact thing, but what are some of the things that you've been able to do that could show me that you have some staying power and that you're resilient in your efforts to actually have things done? Then I want to see. Then I can now draw parallels between, all right, this is something that they said that they were going to do in another arena, right? They completed, they made sure that they put people in to kind of fill the space. Now, want of anything, then it casts some kind of doubt.
There cannot be want of anything now when you come to these individuals we're talking about. If you talk about Kalonzo Musyoka, for example, you look at his track record. Yes, there are many questions that you could ask, but you'll also accept that in the position that he has held, has he been able to deliver to a certain extent, to a certain degree? Then you'll judge with that. As a vice president, what have you done? As a foreign affairs minister, what have you done? Have you successfully negotiated peace in Somalia? Yes. Have you successfully participated in bringing peace
processes in
Sudan? Yes. Have you done this and the other? Yes. Have you asked as environment minister? Have you done this, and the other? He can tell you. Now, if he sits here and he says, do you understand the problems? Do you understand the country? Do you understand the length and breadth of this country? Yes. Do you understand the issues that people in this country are facing? Yes. Why? How do you understand them? Because I've interacted with people at this position of leadership for very many years. I have engaged with various people from various cadres of society, from various age groups, from various gender. I have engaged with people. I have listened to them. I've heard what they're saying. And now, as I'm sitting here with the youth, because yesterday he was meeting with the youth, The youth were telling him pain points. And he was like, in fact, I hear your pain points. University education is very expensive. We have been thinking and we've been working on this. And HELB, interest on HELB, remove. HELB will come as a grant.
Sounds nice. It sounds nice.
When we talk about a 24-hour economy, this is what we mean. We want to make sure that people can work throughout the day, especially on the big cities and towns. Facilitate this 24-hour economy.
He's not the first one to have talked about it.
No, he's not. And he's not going to be the last one.
Exactly.
No,
And this is the thing.
even when we get a 24-hour economy,
How do you
they will still be talking
differentiate?
about making it a 24-hour
And this is the
economy.
thing, unfortunately, because then it becomes very difficult for anybody to differentiate between what is a moment where, by those who aspire to have these seats, are telling you something because it sounds like something that you would want to hear. And the question is, how then would you implement these things? Because you know what? If somebody is able to give you a solid how and that you can actually see it playing out, chances are that this person isn't actually serious about what it is that they're doing. Whether it's come from their head or whether they have a group of advisors who've told them, look, this is exactly what we've been able to do. And I dare say, all of these promises that are being made today, Kalonzo, Raila, Ruto, whomever, the things that they're telling you that they want to do, if somebody can say, yes, I'm going to do this, and this is the manner in which I am going to do it step by step, this is where we're going to move this from, chances are that individual is serious about that thing because they've given it some thought. But if you just come and tell me that, yeah, we're going to remove this, we're going to do this, we're going to make things, we're going to export, how are you going to do it? I think it's about time that you stop telling Kenyans the what. Start telling Kenyans the how.
You see,
because unequivocally, you prove that you've actually given it thought and you have seen tangible, practical ways in which these things are going to happen.
I am removing the burden from the candidate and putting it on the interviewing panel. If the interviewer does not ask me how, I am not going to tell them how.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just going to tell them what I'm going to do.
Kenyans have to ask how.
Yes.
Don't just come and
I
somebody
will
tells
get
you
into
we're
that
going to give
interview
it.
room
I'll
and
say
tell you, my friend, let me tell you something. In fact, we are going to transform the Standard Media Group to be the leading media house in Africa within the next 6 months. Give me the job of the CEO. We're going to make sure we're going to do this and the other. We're going to manage our costs. I have noticed, I've just been looking and seeing the books. We're going to manage our costs. We're going to, if you don't ask me how, I will not tell you how.
Just continue with your PR stint.
So we will be told, and we sit back and we're like, in fact, I think just listening to Kalonzo is education, Raila is this and the other,
Social,
Ruto is this and the other. I think I like, if you don't ask the how, you just look at which one sounds more palatable and sexier to you.
I think that's what it is. That Kenyans have to be asking right now, how are you going to do this? Because you're right, it sounds nice. It's like music to the ears and you say, yeah, I can imagine that. Because now, who is crying? University students are crying. Yeah. They can't afford education, etc., etc., etc. And then somebody comes and tells you, in fact, if you make me president, I'm going to scrap all of this and you guys will go to school for free. Yay! Because what is happening? Is it not the same the way that people who go to church are feeling depressed and the pastor comes and says, by faith you've been... Then you feel great for that day, right?
Yes.
How? And I think Kenyans need to be asking the questions now as these people come to you. Because you're not just to fill a rally or spot. Those 100 students yesterday who met him yesterday and asking if he had been put on the spot, if Raila is put on the spot, 6,000 bob, where today drought is happening in the country, right? And they're saying next month they'll give 1,000. It's not too far from now. A year from now, you're saying you're going to be giving 6,000 shillings to people disadvantaged.
The current 2,000 they're not receiving.
They're not able to do it now. 1,000 shillings, they can't do it. What's going to change in a year? How are you actually going to get this done? I'm telling you, if you ask that question of how, and they're able to explain to you and you can actually see the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle coming together, then I would say yes, give that person.
Kalonzo has a how. On Sunday, Kalonzo, for example, spoke at a church service in Thika, and he said, Kenya will clear all its debts within 2 years should you elect One Kenya Alliance to leadership. He was speaking in Thika, where the Oka principals were attending a church service at the ATG church. Kalonzo said the country is full of mineral-rich areas which have not been exploited. You see the how?
Gold.
And that they are the alliance's main target as a source of money. You see the how?
Which ones?
One of the things that we are proposing as Oka is our copper and iron-filled hills. A lot of these places we have not discovered have very valuable resources. Kitui, for example, is full of copper. What we propose to do is use all these untapped natural resources, and within 2 years, we'll have cleared all our debts.
Okay.
In fact, and after that, we'll be giving you money for free.
Sorry, excuse me. We just today, we read about gold today.
Yes.
Government finally now has done what?
Has given a company
Has given
some...
a company, go ahead, mine, refine, sell, give the people of the environment,
Yes.
of the community some money. How long has it taken? Almost 9 months ago. we
Yeah,
read
this useless government, give Oka.
Oh, if you give Oka, they will get this thing done.
This government is slow on everything. If you give
they would
Oka
have
the power.
figured it out. Let's just take copper as an example. Really moving
Kitui,
very fast. Sort out
mine
all the
copper.
environmental issues. And then let this thing start making some money. And before it starts making some
2
money,
years'
before you
time,
can say
tell
Jack
the Chinese,
Robinson,
go. We don't need your money. You don't need you. Go.
Before you can say Jack Robinson, we've paid Kenya's foreign debt.
Yes.
Okay. It's good. Houdini. I think in addition to this, you have to have an
2 years.
element of magic. It's magic.
What are you not believing? That we have copper in Kitui?
Somebody should have checked.
That
whether
has
the-
been found a long time ago. Do
Somebody
we have
would have
iron
checked
ore in...
under whether there was a white chicken with blue eyes there, because these things, unless it's magic,
Do we have
Practical
copper
solutions.
in Kitui or not? We're
No,
not talking
no,
about
no,
it
read
going
what
to
you
get...
said. Read what you said.
We're not talking about going to
Wait
get copper from Zambia. No. Copper
Wait,
in
read
Kitui.
what you said. That he said what? Places that have not been discovered and yet to blah blah blah. And like in Kitui, there is enough copper that can do etc. etc. Analysis.
What? You wanted me to read what I said? One of the things we are proposing as One Kenya Alliance is our copper and iron filled hills. A lot of these places we have not discovered have very valuable resources. We have discovered. I think this one was a type.
Oh, this okay. That one. Okay, so
Yes.
that one is an example.
For
of one they've
example,
discovered.
Kitui is full of copper. What we propose to do is use all these untapped natural resources, and within 2 years.
Exploration would have been
cleared all our
done,
debts.
mining, refining, people start to make money, and in 2 years, you've paid all your debt from this copper.
Yeah, if you guys don't bring it, now the problem is you Kenyans will start bringing issues. Oh, which company has been given the
Oh,
right,
the environment
the
needs to be
concession.
protected.
Oh, you start demonstrating there. Oh, are we mining copper now? It's
But
if you
left
don't do
to
all those
him,
things, 2 years. Uko na pesa kwa mfuko. We have cleared all our debts.
We have sent children to school,
You
secondary
have
and university.
Paying university for your children free. You have money in the pocket. You can now work for 24 hours in Nairobi.
Okay, so the copper is there now. Right now, it's there. Or it
It's
will
there,
come.
it's under the
Or the
ground.
copper will come when he becomes president.
No. The copper is there.
The copper is there now.
You just need to go and tap it.
And all these instruments can only then be released when.
If you make him president, he'll do it. Okay. Because this current government has been sitting there knowing
that there's copper and they've not touched it.
And what they're doing is borrowing money.
And you who've been rubbing shoulders with them all this time, you've not told them, there's copper here, you can do something about it.
I've told them, but do they listen, these people? They just want to keep borrowing. And the next thing they want to promise us is wheelbarrows. Listen to what Kalonzo was saying about these other campaigns.
You see, it is good to have positive criticism. And I wish they can actually look at this bottom-up thing. Of all the models, the most laughable is this thing they're calling bottom-up. Because, first of all, it perpetuates the concept of poverty. And you want to lift people out of poverty. You cannot lift people out of poverty by handouts. Just like the ODM friend of mine who was saying 6,000 shillings to give to everybody. Robin Hood kind of approach. All right? How will that help anybody? What you need is solid, and we're proposing a very solid economic model where Kenyans have to work. And when we talk about 24-hour working economy,
is copper solid?
It is doable.
It is.
Copper is solid.
Copper is indeed solid.
Yes.
Okay. Kenyans have to work.
Don't
to
tell
get this
people
thing
things.
done.
We have heard these campaign promises from these same people before. These others of at the bottom up. What is bottom up? It's making people poor. What is giving people cash
It's
handouts?
Robin Hood.
That's Robin Hood. Where are you getting the money from to give them? Here is copper. Mine it. Sell
So
it.
we can do all these other
Get
things.
money.
Debt
Pay
free.
debt. Have
Send
money.
kids to school.
If I tell you I'm going to give you 2,000 shillings, it came from Kitui, copper. Sold. Where is 6,000 coming from? Where is this bottom up coming from? How do you define the bottom? Who's wiping the bottom? Solid ideas, not these stories.
Amorphous, ambiguous things.
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. I can see that there are options. But my question remains. My question still remains. All these things that are kept in the pocket, it's still as though you're dangling them over the heads of Kenyans.
Yes.
Until and unless you get, so you're going to keep that treasure literally hidden. You're still using it as collateral.
Yes.
Give me the position, and then I will release this thing that it could essentially save the country. So the question is, are you interested in the salvation of the country developmentally and the economy, or are you interested in yourself in that position?
Both.
And it is only you who can deliver it.
Yes, because I've clearly seen that the others can't. I have seen, and I can demonstrate to you, the others cannot. So with me in this position, I will deliver. This is my idea. There's nothing wrong with someone coming with an idea and saying, I want to execute this idea.
No, not at all.
Now, give them the opportunity to execute the idea. We, for example, gave Jubilee for the last 9 years. 2013, they promised very many things. The other day I was looking at the launch of the Jubilee Manifesto in 2013. One of the things that the spokesperson, who was the running mate candidate then, William Ruto, who wants to be president now, said, women in Kenya will no longer use jembes to till their land. 2013, that was the Jubilee Manifesto. The government will import tractors to be used to till all the lands in this Kenya.
No more jembe.
No more women in Kenya to use jembe. Kenya, jembe.
Woman.
In this century. Woman. No way. Government is going to import tractors.
No.
I only saw Alfred Mutua with tractors in Machakos. He was not
a woman.
Alfred Mutua came up with some tractors in Machakos. I think for a while there was a program like that. Some counties, yes. But government tractors, I did not see. 2017, what did they say? You are a young person. You have graduated from college, poly, TVET, university. You need job. But first of all, you need some practical training.
Yes.
So, we are going to offer internships and apprenticeships to all the youth who are graduating from university and colleges. And the government will be paying you 10,000 shillings
per month
for your internship. That was 4 years ago. Those who are the target have not yet graduated. That's why.
They've not received. Otherwise, they would have received this money.
10,000 shillings has been there. It's been waiting for you finish. Yeah. The problem with the youth in Kenya is that they're not graduating from college or university.
Otherwise, they would have received this.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm throwing all of them in the same pot. All of them. Same pot. Same mix.
It's 28 minutes to 8. Let's take this quick break. Take a look at the traffic and the weather. 0719-012-600. So, all these campaign promises, they just sound as absurd and ridiculous as you can imagine. What should we do, really, to just clean up the airwaves from these politicians? It's 28 minutes to 8. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Follow your dreams to the land of the rising sun with a host of academic opportunities to pursue your undergraduate and postgraduate studies in Japan's leading universities. Visit www.studyinjapan-africa.com to find out how you can enroll to the program.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 1 hash to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi, sprinkling at some point. 17 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 16 today. At 15 degrees, it's mostly sunny in Nakuru, highs of 26. We'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri, currently at 15. Eldoret is sunny at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 13 today. And in Mombasa, light rain at some parts, 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Malindi is raining at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Kisumu, sunny conditions at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's partly sunny at 21, highs of 30 and lows of 16. Kampala is sunny at 22, we'll see highs of 29. Dar es Salaam raining at 25, highs of 32. In Johannesburg, it's mostly cloudy at 13 with highs of 24 to come back down to lows of 13. Lagos, mostly clear at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 24. And Kinshasa is raining at 23. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 22.
Chilled Spice.
All right, what does it look like? Some of the roads are slippery this morning. That explains why it has slowed down in some parts. Uhuru Highway, trouble today. Well, I know this spoil. And it continues all the way into the CBD today. Langata Road, right around that dam estate, going towards Wilson Airport and then to the T-Mall roundabout. It's not happening, folks. Moving very, very slowly. And this traffic is doing what? It's spilling over to Bagathi Way, which normally would be your free pass into the city. Not so free this morning. Also, Jogo Road, industrial area. Everybody has joined the party. Okay, I was going to say Lagos because, ain't no party like a Lagos party. Anyway, Thika Superhighway is crazy, and that's moving into the city this morning. Westlands coming out. You want to use a Red Hill Link Road. That's going to take you to the city much quicker. Remember, some parts of the roads are slippery. Please be careful because we don't want trouble on top trouble. Abi, SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
This is 24
Spice
minutes
FM,
to
Nairobi.
8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. So 0719012600. Campaign promises upon campaign promises. Yesterday, the former vice president, one-time vice president and Wiper Democratic Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, was meeting with youthful leaders in the Kalonzo Musyoka. What's it called? Kalonzo Musyoka Center.
Yeah, something like
Stephen
Kalonzo Musyoka. Yeah.
SKM Center. Oh, right. That's where they were meeting
Command
yesterday.
Center.
Command Center. Oh, it's a command center.
Yes.
They were meeting there yesterday, and they were talking about, what a Kalonzo Musyoka government could do, especially just to address the plight of the youth. And among the things that he said was, Ndu, you can repeat?
Oh, sure, please. I would love to. First of all, let's set the stage, right?
Okay.
He said that university students are inundated with loans, deplorable living conditions in hostels, and slim prospects of landing decent jobs after graduation. So he's promised grants to the neediest students. He said he's going to make university education free of charge, and he's going to leverage Kenyan skilled manpower to make the country a labor exporter. That's not all. He said also that they were going to introduce grants for university education, making Kenya a large-scale labor exporter, as well as saying, look, free secondary education so that we can have a working nation. Kenyans do not want to go to the days of handout politics and economics. That's when Kenyans are done. They're not interested. Kenyans might tell you something different, but all right. He said, look, we'll sign bilateral labor agreements for our workers as long as they don't get abused like what's happening in the Arab world.
Right.
He said the Philippines, for example, their largest foreign remittance, they've earned more from foreign remittance than commodities that are produced locally. And it can be the same for Kenya. And he says these are the things that he wants to do. And he said he's going to scrap this university loan business and they're going to introduce grants, making university education essentially free. If.
Of course.
Yeah.
If he's the chief executive and he has the power, he will now make it free for you to go to school from kindergarten all the way to university. Free. Mwai Kibaki said the same. People laughed. Free. What is free? Kids went to primary school for free. Jubilee came, said free. Day secondary. And they've been able to cover some of it. Now Kalonzo is saying 100% free. When there was a conversation about 100% transition, it was also 100% transition where well, it's happening. It has its very many problems and pitfalls. It's happening. Kalonzo is now saying free university education. Okay? But he's also against handouts. But this is not handout. This is basically just ensuring that we are developing a good workforce. After we have this good workforce, we sign bilateral agreements with markets so that we can export our labor, like the Philippines has done. And Philippines is a good case study when it comes to Philippines and how they've taken their workers to Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries. Yes, it's working. It works very well. Now, he says he wants to do the same. And then, among other things, is to make sure that we have this 24-hour economy that is working and moving. Every day, there's a new promise being made by a political, one of these people. Every new day. It's like they are disjointed. Today, I'll just wake up and listen to you and then tell you, university, free. Tomorrow, I'll tell you, debt. We're going to clear the debt. The other day, we'll listen to women. We are going to employ all women. We'll listen to, what is
anybody you listen to, there's a solution for them at that point.
Yeah. There's an issue. I mean, what is it? At the coast. Coast. We are going to do this for the coast. It's appearing like, they're just coming up with things.
Just to suit the need at the
out
moment.
Of thin air.
To suit the expectations of the people that you are speaking to at that moment. You will say anything that comes into your mind at that point. I would be very interested to know if before these meetings take place, excuse me,
is it part of the plan? Like, is he saying, okay, thank you very much for coming?
This is what I've been thinking about. Can we have a moment to discuss some of these ideas that I have had for very long? And I say, okay, guys, this is what I actually think can happen. Or is it that they told you, by the way, 100 people are coming to see you this morning. What are you going to tell them? They say, in fact, you guys are suffering. In fact, we read in the paper that you guys were complaining you came back to school. I'm going to be president.
Forget this whole issue of fighting with university. University has increased fees. It doesn't matter. It will not matter anymore.
It won't even be
the university is increasing fees. It will not be an issue because there will be no fees for you to pay.
It sounds nice. Even if now you ask me, children come and say they're coming to see me, Ndu wants to be president. How easy do you think it is for me to say what I wanted to say? I can tell you anything. And it will sound very nice. But how much thought? How true is it that these are the things you're actually thinking about? Saying that having been given the opportunity to rule the nation, that you are really going to do these things. Just like you said, it can be youth who meet you for breakfast, the women will meet you for lunch, and then somebody else will meet you in the evening. And you'll say all manner of different things to them.
And then now it comes communities. So the Maasai will meet you, listen to them and tell the Maasai this. Then the other time the Kisis will come and they listen to the Kisis and tell them this. We'll have banana processing factories.
That you actually feel that your people are gullible enough that they will just listen to.
But because we are gullible. See, I've just told you what people voted for in 2013 and 2017.
Gullible.
Aish, boss. Brian in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
We are not gullible.
Yeah. What are we?
The issue is we are tribal, and when one leader, we only have one leader who can deliver.
Per tribe. One leader per tribe.
We have only one leader who can deliver for Kenya. Raila Amolo Odinga.
What is he going to deliver?
You know, they have the track record. You guys just vote for us this time.
Really?
Okay.
Oh, we lost Brian. Oh, and I wanted to hear. Okay. Karaoke in Lavington, good morning.
Good morning.
How you
Good morning,
doing?
Karaoke.
Salam, where is City? Or is he stuck in traffic?
No. Well, there's some traffic somewhere, that's for sure. He's not feeling too well, but
Something's stuck in his throat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Our best wishes to him.
Yes.
See, in the run-up to each election, we see the same pattern of sensational, mostly non-viable promises made by politicians.
Yes.
And rarely do these promises come to fruition once they've been made. And we've seen this in the last two elections most of all. So we have the same pattern each election, but I think there's something that can be done differently. And I think it's under the aegis of the Media Council that we have had presidential debates in the past.
Yep.
My proposition would be that there be presidential debates among maybe top 3 to 5 candidates as determined by a poll, and that once the media have, fielded their questions as they typically do, that a panel of experts drawn from various socioeconomic spheres debate and judge the practicability or otherwise of the promises, or let's call them, post-election policies or even pre-election policies of the candidates. The debatants can then be convened, and before viewers and listeners, TV, radio, they will then be told by that panel which promises are viable in the panel's expert opinion, which ones are a fantasy. The debate should be held like now, way before the polls, as that is when the promises are made. You agree that by the time we have presidential debates in Kenya, usually probably the elections are just around the corner, 2 weeks maybe. The promises are normally made much, much earlier, and they are interrogated in the presidential debates so close to the election. So, we can have another one nearer the polls, by which time hopefully candidates will have tempered their promises because there's an earlier debate.
Karaoke.
And the whole purpose of this would be to enlighten the electorate, especially the discerning ones, not the ones who want to vote by heart, but they also want to vote by head, because like the gentleman from Nakuru said, we may be gullible to varying degrees, but we also need, Kenyans are not, the typical pedestrian Kenyan is not an expert in everything. So when you have a panel of experts, people, the candidates who are making these promises can be exposed.
A number of things here in your proposal. One
suggestion.
Suggestion. One is that, first of all, that this panel of experts is impartial. That they themselves, you take a proposal to take the bottom-up proposal to a group of economists, and there'll be those like Devin Day who'll tell you this is perfect. And there will be those like Devin Day who will tell you this cannot work, depending on where Devin Day is on that day.
That is the worst example of a panel of experts because he's made political pronouncements. So
that's
already,
exactly my point.
Already he is not. Already he will not be impartial. So I'm talking about people who've not been known to have made sentiments whose political affiliations are not known, and then whoever convenes this panel of experts, I don't know whether it will be the Media Council or whichever other body, can actually prescribe to this panel what are the rules. How are we going to do this? Because even the candidates themselves cannot be. They cannot be impartial. So even the individuals by nature are not impartial. So. But if there's a rule or there's a spinal cord by which decisions or discussions are being judged, then everybody can see that this is, this is somehow impartial.
Yeah. All right.
That is just my suggestion. Please think about it. You are the media. Take it to your masters, the Media Council of Kenya. Let's not have debate 2 weeks to the election. The promises and the fantasies are being made now. So by the time we have the elections are around the corner. We can have another debate.
Yeah.
By which time this panel of experts has basically dissected the live, so that the candidates will now.
A number of things will determine this, though, Karaoke. A number of things will determine
Yeah.
this. Number one is the timelines for nomination. Who's been nominated and who's now been declared formally a candidate. Number two, at what point do they also release their own manifesto? So they also release their own manifesto at a point. Yeah. So those are some of the
Then soon after the manifestos are released, that
Yeah.
is the time.
Okay. Thanks, Karaoke.
Asante. All right, good day.
Jimmy in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning to how are you?
Very well.
Morning.
Good. Just going straight to the point.
Yes.
We can have debates, we can have everything, even a year before. We can have all this. But what matters is the promises. You see, there's a problem where the common mwananchi, let me say the mwananchi, the citizen, they have this policy of wachatu. You know the wachatu policy?
Which one is that?
Wachatu, miaka tano si mingi. You see? Because people do give promises. And because the citizens don't understand the content of the Constitution of Kenya, and they don't recall their leaders, this is why we will always be played games. You see?
Yes.
Because the citizen must know, if somebody promised this, and we gave you this, we elected you this, the people that know that elected that person, and the person has failed to give the promises that they made, immediately they should recall the person, go to the high court, because mahakama kuu ni mahakama isiyokuwa na mpaka wowote kwenye swala la kisheria, kikatiba na haki. So it has no limitations to anything that consists of the people's rights constitutionally. So if the members can collect signatures and recall this leader, and we have one person being taken out with vote of no confidence from the citizens, from the people, then the people will learn to keep promises that are right.
Yeah.
Secondly, one big problem is because of ego and lack of direction. Ego and greed is taking over. You promise so many good things. Look, like when you're saying about Kanu, the former founders of this nation, the first party was Kanu. Kanu's flag was black, red, and white, black, red, and green, which was given from Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the black supremacy. They borrowed that flag from the black supremacy. You see? So the main issue about Kanu was Kenya Africa National Union, the unity, Kenyans uniting Africa. But because of greed and ego, then everything fell apart. So this time that the children have come together and they are trying to show us they have come together, they should not talk of anything else other than uniting Africa, because that is the only thing that will keep corruption out.
Thank you, Jimmy. Asante. Good day in Malindi. Nyakwara in Nairobi.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Yeah, I think the issue is really about broken promises. And Kenyans, we need to wake up at this point and say, no more broken promises. We don't want any promises. We want leaders who are action leaders, people who are going to do things that need to be done.
Yeah.
Right? Honorable Sakaja said it yesterday. He's tired of being the guy who legislates, the guy who makes promises. He wants to be the guy who wants to go and do things and make those things come to life. That's the course that we need to go. Eric, there's one thing that I want you guys to tackle before I even contribute to today's topic, which is the promise leaders make about respecting the office. But we've seen a lot of cases during this period of people abusing those offices. You have a deputy who's out there using state resources every day campaigning. You have cabinet ministers involved in politics, things they swore not to uphold. Gross misconduct against the Constitution. Those are things that I want you guys to highlight and tackle. To today's topic, then, right? I really want to ask Kenyans one question. We're being told we can mine copper and pay off our Chinese debt.
2 years.
Zambia, which we were taught many years ago. Yeah, please. Zambia, which we were taught in geography many years ago, has been mining coppers for decades.
Yes.
Is one of the most Chinese indebted countries on the planet today.
It's in default.
It's in default. Their port officially belongs to China.
Right? How come we can't pay? You stand on national TV and promise young people that you're going to wipe off student loans and give them grants. Do you even understand what that takes? Right? We can talk about 100% conversion, but what is the quality of education we're giving our young people? Therefore, what is the labor that we're going to export 3 years from now, 10 years from now? So Kenyans have to stand up and say, this nonsense of being given promises must end. We want people who can do these things today.
Okay, Nyakwara, let me ask you, Nyakwara. How would you propose that then the voter engages with this person who's coming? Because either way, even if they don't make this seemingly ridiculous promises, they'll come with a promise. That's the reason I'm campaigning. So I'll come and say, I want to do this and the other. How should a voter then interrogate this?
In my view, it's simple, right? Number one, people need to realize that showing up for these campaigns to be blasted with music is a waste of your time.
It's not the thing,
right?
Yeah.
If this leader is not coming to talk to you about things they are doing today, right? This is the project I'm bringing to your village today, and I want you to come volunteer your time on Saturday or Friday so that we can dig that borehole. Then go do something else.
And
by
so
not
I've got to
showing
ask
up
you
for these rallies.
So we have to ask you then, it doesn't matter the position that you hold. By the time you are able to speak to a significant group of Kenyans, then you're already operating within certain spheres of influence. So then there are things that you could be doing today that will point to your real interest in what you could do for the country if you got to the highest position, right?
Exactly, Ndu. Let me give you an example. If you walk into Kawangware here, or Korogosho, or Kibera, right? None of these politicians has ever said, this Saturday, we are going to come together. We're not going to have a political rally. We're going to clean our environment. These places are filthy, right? With all due respect to the people who live there, these places are filled with garbage and everything. You've never seen Raila or Ruto or Kalonzo go to NMS, walk downtown to NMS to say, my people in this part of the country are not served. They don't receive garbage services, right? So how do I expect Kalonzo or Uhuru or Raila, or Ruto or Raila, Uhuru is Venezuela, or Ruto or Raila to ever solve those problems if they're not doing it today and they have the influence to do it today?
Exactly.
But Yakara, if we actually now went granular, we'll find that during campaign season, that's when you find all these activities taking place. Go anywhere in the country and you'll find there's somebody who's sponsoring a youth football tournament. There's somebody who is sponsoring the construction of a new social hall at a church. There's somebody who's sponsoring some activity in a community. This is part of campaigning.
Sorry, Eric, let me correct you there. Let me correct you there. You've seen it's all about school buses. You probably saw the clip of Matiang'i the other day talking about our students living in filthy hostels while all the MPs are spending CDF money donating school buses to schools that don't need it. They're not even doing youth tournaments anymore. Right? Our priorities are misplaced. How comes the parents in that school cannot come together to say, why do we need a bus? We need more laboratory equipment for our school.
Because the parents want a bus. The parents want a... You think a politician is going where people do not want? The parents want to see something tangible. They want to see a bus
Some of these
on the road.
Don't even have a bicycle. I mean, with all due respect to them.
They want to see a bus and say, hii basi imeletwa na mheshimiwa. This whole thing of saying
that taking the bus there because
they know.
It's the sign of development,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So I think it's time that Kenyans to step back and it has to start with you and me and in our small circle of friends to say they're not going for that meeting
and don't be afraid to interrogate. Yeah.
I mean, take it this way. Someone has been to your village 4 times in the last 1 month or 2 months, making the same promises.
Surely.
Yeah. Why are you going to that meeting 3-4 times?
And you can even recite what they're going to tell you.
No, you cannot decide what they're going to tell you.
No,
but
I'm saying you can recite even before you went to the next meeting.
You know what
they're going to tell you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You could write the script yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So unless we stop turning up for these events until people get serious and start voting with our feet to rallies or town halls where people are talking about things that affect us, right? All these big infrastructure projects will never affect the lives of people. But if we can tackle healthcare in this country, we can tackle education in this country, if we can tackle the issue of small business, small enterprise in this country, we will start to advance our people. We'll start to go to give our people the ambition they need. They have of becoming a middle income country. But if we keep focusing on the wrong things, then it's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Indeed.
That's true. Very well said, Nyakwara. Thank you very much for your call.
Have a nice day, guys.
You too.
You too.
Well, it comes back to the interviewing panel. Candidate will come. Candidate will say the very many things that the candidate wants to say. But if the interviewing panel is just sitting there, eating everything from the lap of the candidate, shauri yako.
They'll continue. They're essentially.
Oh, yes.
There's no pushback, there are no questions, there's no asking, there's no interrogation. You're basically giving a green light to go ahead and continue saying whatever it is that you feel.
Come in, Mr. Candidate, or sit down. Oh, you look you look very smart today. So what can you do for us? Do this. How much do you want us to pay you? You should pay me this much. Why? Because okay. Here, you have the job. And then next week you realize this person that you gave the job of plumbing is actually...
And it's too late for you to ask questions because the entire system is down.
Is down. Good morning. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is news with Dennis Aseto. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission IEBC has confirmed that it has resumed the constituency office-based continuous voter registration and revision of the voters' roll upon conclusion of the National Enhanced Continuous Voter Registration. The Commission, however, notes that the CVR exercise is for new registration, transfer of registration status, change of particulars and deletion of dead voters. Through a statement and signed by Commission Chair Wafula Chebukati, IEBC reiterated that the resumed CVR exercise is for eligible persons who have not registered as voters before. Now, top officials in Nairobi County continue to plan the swearing-in ceremony of Anne Kananu as the county's new governor. Although the exact date has not been announced, the Nairobi County Communications Office has indicated that activities are scheduled to take place this week. This after former Governor Mike Sonko lost a case he had filed at the Supreme Court seeking to hold Kananu swearing in. It will be remembered that Sonko himself appointed Kananu as Deputy Governor in January 2020. Now, we recorded 26 new cases of COVID-19 from 1,346 samples tested in the last 24 hours. The cases bring the positivity rate to 1.9% and the cumulative infections to 253,879. The youngest of the new cases is a 2-year-old child, while the oldest is 85 years old. This as we continue to urge you to continue observing the COVID-19 protocols so that we can win the fight against COVID-19. Government spokesperson Cyrus Agona is expected to launch a food distribution program in Kwale County. Kwale Commissioner Gideon Oyagi says about 100,000 people are being targeted. The commissioner also said that the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO aims to provide financial assistance to affected residents. Red Cross is also expected to begin livestock offloading exercise where they'll be buying livestock from the residents affected by the biting drought. More than 6,000 Murang'a residents have registered with the county government seeking to help resolve land succession cases. The county administration from last month has been registering residents who have land succession cases to facilitate settlements out of court. The county has partnered with Mount Kenya University School of Law and local officers from the Ministry of Interior to help residents who have pending succession cases in court. Governor Mwangi wa Iria said the partnership is geared towards helping more than 20,000 residents to fast-track solving the land disputes which have affected especially poor families. The National Environmental Management Authority has arrested 11 people accused of destroying the environment in Homa Bay County. 9 suspects have been arrested for using plastic bags. Meanwhile, 2 suspects were arrested in Ogande village while throwing garbage indiscriminately. The suspects were arrested during a search by Nema County Director Josiah Nyandoro in collaboration with police officers. Nyandoro said the suspects would be arraigned in court to be prosecuted in accordance with the law. Plastic bags were banned in Kenya in 2017. These as world leaders continue to call on individuals to play a role in protecting the environment that continues to suffer from carbon emissions. The government has allocated 17.9 million shillings to build 23 classrooms in 8 high schools in Mombasa County as part of the CBC curriculum. The schools are Aldina Vistram, Chudaday, Vita, Star of the Sea, Alfasi Girls, Makopa Boys, Baraki Girls and Sharif Nasir. Mombasa Deputy Commissioner Ronald Mwiwawi says a total of 780,000 shillings will be spent on the construction of each class project, which is expected to be completed in April next year. A total of 11,600 classrooms are targeted for construction across the country, with the project itself being upgraded to modern infrastructure to meet the requirement of the implementation of the curriculum in secondary schools. The First Lady, Margaret Kenyatta, has thanked well-wishers and partners of Ghetto Classics for supporting the musical group in its efforts to improve the lives of underprivileged children. The First Lady, who is the patron of the Arts of Music Foundation that runs the Ghetto Classics music education program, said the support from well-wishers and partners has helped the group to expand the music education program. Ghetto Classics, a flagship program of the Arts of Music Foundation founded by Miss Elizabeth Njoroge in 2007, has to date benefited 1,500 children and youth from vulnerable and disadvantaged backgrounds, as well as lives of Korogosho and other satellite communities. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Officially in traffic hour this morning, and the Thika Superhighway is an absolute mess. A lot of folks are asking this morning, what exactly is going on Thika Road? I do not know. Perhaps you can help me. All the way from starting from Safari Park, literally all lanes jam-packed, a bumper-to-bumper situation. Not quite sure what the problem is there. Might you know? Would you let us know, please, so we can at least spread that word. There's traffic along Komarok Road all the way from Dandora to the 36 today, and that's not moving at all. Moving very, very slowly along Jogo Road as well. It begins at Hamza. And so if you're thinking about getting on Jogo Road today, you might want to give it a bit of a better think and think about another route to get into the city apart from Jogo Road. Option is to then use Enterprise and then come off Mombasa Road, because Mombasa Road is not behaving too badly today. Uhuru Highway, however, that's a totally different story. You might want to think about that too also as you're trying to get into the city. Limu Road has packed up, as has Ngong Road this morning. Bagathi Way, then trying to get off of Langata Road, is also taking on some of this traffic today. So traffic hour, it's crazy. It's the middle of the week. Let's see how we can traverse this without too much of a scratch. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us on text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 7 minutes
only
after
way
8.
to
This is
start
Kenya's
your
biggest
day.
conversation, The Situation Room, getting into the third hour of the show this morning, the 10th day of November 2021. We are happy that you're tuned in on SpiceFM online, and those that are joining us now on KTN Home, who will be with us for the next 1 hour. Let me tell you the day's proverb on behalf of CT Muga, who's not here today. He's a little bit under the weather, but we hope he'll be back soon. Today's proverb is from Rwanda. A large eye does not mean keen vision. A large eye does not mean keen vision. Yes. No, it doesn't.
Neither does a small eye mean narrow vision.
Frail vision.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. Huh? It doesn't mean that. Let's have a conversation with a large eye on what has been happening in the country over the last number of years. Now, we are in November, yes, but there's a month that's set aside to be a month to create awareness on a disease or a condition called sickle cell. And this is September. But let's have it again anyway today. Sickle cell awareness and just getting to understand what sickle cell is all about. We're joined by somebody who understands these things very well, and he's Dr. Nathan Mulure. He is the head of public affairs at Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa. Dr. Actuary, welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much for your warm welcome.
It's good to have you. Karibu sana. We normally call that the hot seat.
Yes.
But because you're coming to teach us, we are not going to make it hot.
Yes.
We'll just make it a very comfortable one for you. Let us first of all understand what Novartis is. I just before we went on air, I was saying I know Novartis, but I know Novartis from animal health.
Yes.
From seeing dawa ya ng'ombe, dawa ya kuku, dawa ya mbuzi.
Yes.
But not on human medicine. You have that as well.
Yes, we have that as well. And thank you very much for a very warm welcome. And really glad to be here this morning. My name is Nathan Mulure, as you've said. And I work for Novartis for the last easily 16 years. And Novartis is a pharmaceutical company, a global company, based in Switzerland, but with a presence all over the world. I think in about 100 countries now, with about 120,000 employees. So it's a huge multinational that is present in Kenya. In Kenya, we've been around for the last about 20 years, mostly doing work in malaria, but also now expanding to other therapeutic areas. For example, breast cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and the like. Yes, so it's true we have a lot of medicines for human health.
Okay.
That is our biggest pillar today. And we are glad to be in this space of sickle cell disease, which is a big problem in Africa that we want to tackle. And really happy that KTN and the group of Standard Media are doing a great job in creating awareness for this disease. I think with all these efforts that we put together, we can change the tide of sickle cell disease and really see a reversal of what has been happening.
I think we first need to understand what sickle cell is.
Yeah, sickle cell, like the name says, sickle cell. So the red blood cells are shaped like sickle cells. It is a genetic disease that is mostly affecting African population, and the history is pretty long. I think if you look at medical science, dates about a million years back when the sickle cell gene first appeared. And this cell has been protective against malaria. So it was a survival tactic for the human beings during the changes in evolution to survive malaria. And so this cell is genetically transmitted. So the father and the mother must have a trait. And if that happens, then the offsprings would have a sickle cell disease. And what happens in sickle cell disease crisis is that when the red cells are deprived of oxygen, they react and form a sickle shape. So they become like a sickle, like a banana shape. And that affects the cell in terms of deforming itself, because red blood cells, as you know, are easily deformable, but the sickle cells are quite rigid. They don't deform. And when they go into narrow blood vessels, they actually block those blood vessels. And that causes the crisis, the sickle cell disease crisis, which is a painful crisis. And patients endure a lot of excruciating pain. You can't even describe it. They, talk to some patients, they say actually it's like somebody taking a hammer and hammer nails into your bone constantly for hours.
Wow.
It's immense pain. And this patient starts getting this crisis from the 9 months of age.
Right.
And it progresses until, the whole lifespan. Yeah, so we think that with a lot of effort, advocacy, with a lot of awareness creation, we can make a dent on sickle cell disease.
In terms of prevalence, Dr. what are we looking at? And I'll talk about in Kenya for now, because in West Africa, the prevalence of sickle cell is extremely high. We're looking at countries like Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, very high, especially in certain parts of the country. And even as you're talking about it, hereditary, have you been able to point to environmental factors or triggers that play a part then in the high cases that you see in some parts? And then moving to the eastern side of the continent, looking at raising awareness, how potent is the prevalence then of sickle cell in Kenya?
Yeah, that's a good question. And unfortunately, we have paucity of data. There's no data on sickle cell disease. And even as we speak today, we don't clearly know how many, cases are produced every year. The estimates, so to speak, I think in Kenya they talk about 11,000 cases every year. In West Africa, as you say, it is quite prevalent, mostly in Nigeria. I think 2% of population in Nigeria have the trait, 2%. In a country of 200 million people, you take 2%, you're usually talking about 2 million patients every year. So it's a huge problem. Also in Congo, DRC, another huge problem. And really it's just genetic, not environmental. It's purely genetic. It's transmitted through families. And that in itself, and based on our culture in Africa, we like, even intermarrying within our communities. Right. We actually advise that marry within your community because that is where the cultural norms fit best. People are comfortable because your wife can speak your mother tongue. The cultures are similar, so it's easy to integrate. Unfortunately, if that community has a sickle cell trait, then that is propagated in that family or community. That's why you see in Western Kenya, for example, the Luya and the Luo, go to Homa Bay district, go to Kisumu. It is quite prevalent. And then go to coastal province in Taita Taveta. Again, because people marry within their communities.
Can you break that down a little bit? Because, again, going back to Nigeria, the conversation before people get married, interestingly enough, is have you checked your genotype? Yes. Before now, you marry somebody who, and I often get confused, AS, SS, yes. Go and check so that you're not then, getting married and then having children who would be sicklers.
Yes.
What is that science all about? And what do you watch out for? How do you know that you're carrying the gene? Somebody is carrying the one that if you combine them, then you're guaranteed to have a healthy child or not.
Yeah, so the sickle cell trait basically occurs in many communities in Africa. So for one to get the sickle cell disease itself, both parents have to be carriers. So if the mother is carrying the gene and the father is carrying the gene as well, there's a chance that one of the children will also be carrying the gene or have the disease itself. So the trait itself is called the SS. So when you have SS, basically you have sickle cell disease. If you have AS, then you don't have the sickle cell disease. But SS really you have the sickle cell disease. So when you have the sickle cell disease, then you manifest those signs very early in life. Even from the 9 months of age, you start having crisis as soon as the fetal hemoglobin goes down. Then the SS takes up, and then you start having those crises because the SS cannot respond to stresses of oxygen. The cell becomes a sickle cell shape. So in Africa, of course, you're always asked to do a background check in the community and check if they're your relatives, check if you're related, and if you are, then you're advised not to. But again, this cell has now become prevalent in many people, and the only way to know is, of course, to do the test. So it's a rapid diagnostic test. So you just have your blood pricked, and they can tell you whether it's SS or whether it's AS. And based on that, then that knowledge informs you of what to do in terms of getting married. You can seek genetic counseling. It's difficult to be so prescriptive that you tell couples by force ABCD. It's quite difficult because these love affairs are quite emotional.
Yeah.
But it's important that parents are informed, that they have full knowledge, that as they make that decision, they know the consequences, they know how to even take care of the children as soon as they're born, take them for a test. Luckily, some might not have the trait at all, or this SS. Those that have, again, start treatment very early. We've known that if you start treatment early as 9 months, then the patient can actually lead a normal life, devoid of crisis. And we've seen patients who are now in their 16 years old, teenagers. They've never had a crisis because they've been taken care of right from the beginning. And so we want to propagate that message that if you know your status, if you know the child is carrying a trait, if you know the child has SS, then start treatment very early.
So it's about treatment. And treatment is like managing the situation. There's no cure for sickle cell.
Well, as we speak today, there's no cure. But there are advanced centers in the world that offer bone marrow transplant. So you can have your bone marrow, transplanted, and then you sort of get cured. That's very costly, and it's a very complicated process. And we don't have that in Kenya. I think in Africa, Nigeria has just started the transplant, and probably South Africa. But in many countries, we don't have. And then, of course, there's the gene therapy that could be a definitive cure. Gene therapy, I think we are still 10 years to go before the gene therapy starts. What happens in the meantime? Today, how do we handle the situation today? Yes, there is no cure as we speak today, as in definitive cure, apart from bone marrow and then gene transplant. However, there's a lot we can do to let these patients lead a normal life.
Tell us about the patient, Actuary.
Yeah.
How does a patient live their life? I mean, what does a patient who has sickle cell, what do they go through in their life on a daily basis? For those who don't know, have never come across somebody with sickle cell.
Yes, that's a good question, and I'm happy that you asked it because there's a lot of ignorance about sickle cell disease amongst patients, amongst healthcare workers, amongst caregivers. And these patients who are born with sickle cell disease, they endure a lot of suffering. And right from the time they're born, you find that they fail to thrive. For example, they don't grow as usual normal babies grow. They're delayed, so to speak. And when they have the crisis, like I said before, the crisis is a very painful crisis. It's acute pain, and it's so distressing to the child. It's distressing to the caregiver. And this crisis doesn't give you a warning when it comes. It could come at midnight. And it's painful and, almost paralyzing pain. So what do you do in a small hut in Kisumu at midnight when this pain has just struck? What do you do?
Painkiller.
You can't even go out. I mean, the roads are dark, the clinics are closed. The mother has to endure that pain with the child until morning. Then in the morning, go to hospital. In the hospital, and you'll get medication, get stabilized. But again, you find that these patients go to clinics so often until their peer sort of burdensome to the healthcare providers, and they sometimes endure a lot of stigmatization as well in that setup. So what we're telling people now is that we need to understand this child's pain and condition.
So what happens? So just the child is okay, and then suddenly they go into a fit of pain. So they have basically just crying and wailing, and they are in pain.
Yeah.
And is it for a period of time? Is it for a short period, for 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
The pain can last very long.
What is very long?
It can last days. I mean, I had a friend who could be in crisis for hours and then go into crisis and be in crisis for 3 days. So you can imagine 3 days of that constant pain, and they would not be, they would not come out. They would have to be indoors, and it's writhing in pain that very few painkillers would be able to sort out. Exactly. And then maybe this is also something you can talk about then, because they would be on these painkillers constantly, and then that also posed another health hazard to them because there was no option apart from getting rid of the pain and managing the situation at that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So the crisis can actually last a long time. It can last even 8 hours. And if the patient is not getting relief from that crisis, that immense suffering actually causes psychological distress to the patient.
Yeah.
And also you find that because of these frequent episodes of pain, sometimes they go to the healthcare workers and they're told, you guys want to become drug addicts. You're just used to painkillers all the time, and they deny that painkiller. The healthcare workers need to understand that pain is real pain, and not just patients malingering to pretend that they have pain and for the sake of getting medication. The painkillers that they get, of course, you can get paracetamol, but some also actually require stronger painkillers, like morphine, for example. Are those drugs available in all the health centers? Probably not. So they end up with a lot of pain, and what you need to realize that pain is not just pain. It's a crisis. We call it vaso-occlusive crisis, where the blood vessels are blocked, and this can lead to stroke in a child. A child getting stroke because of the pain. it can lead to organ damage, kidneys, the eyes. When you block vessels that supply these organs with oxygen, they get organ damage. And that's why you find that in Africa, sickle cell patients don't live for long.
Right.
I mean, they live for 30 years, 20 years. We don't see patients living to 80 years like in the US because of that, lack of intense care that those countries have. So we want to change all that tide. I mean, it's a long journey, but I'm really grateful to the Ministry of Health. The MOH has come in very strongly to support the sickle cell program and even launch the guidelines.
Even as I'm hearing you say this, and awareness that is being created for patients and their families, it seems to me that there also needs to be awareness that then spreads to health workers for them to understand. Because at that point, with a crisis, for example, what are you trying to do is manage the pain. If there's no cure for this, treatment that can be given on a regular basis doesn't necessarily stop a crisis. So in terms of then awareness that is now being built or created, what's the target then for healthcare workers, apart from a doctor, for example, who understands what is going on here, and those who may need to administer medication or who receives the patient on a regular basis? What do they need to be clear about their understanding?
Yeah, so again, a very good question for healthcare providers. I think what we have done, first of all, is to support the Ministry of Health to come up with guidelines for treatment of sickle cell disease. That was lacking for the longest time. So since 2014, when the first guidelines were discussed and mooted, they sort of stalled for about 7 years. So we did work with the Ministry of Health last year and Capricorn. Capricorn is a Kenya Pediatric Research Consortium. And Professor Were, which did a very commendable job in setting those guidelines. Within 6 months, guidelines were ready. And the same were launched this year in June. So that's the first step, that we need to have guidelines, because guidelines really have the prescriptive pathway to follow in case a child gets a sickle cell disease. The guidelines specify which medications have to be kept at which health center, for example. They specify the psychosocial support that the patient needs, and the caregivers as well. We forget the caregivers sometimes. The caregivers are also patients. They undergo a lot of suffering. They have that sympathetic sort of suffering with the child, and they also need to be taken care of. So the guidelines were the first step. Right now, we're working with the Ministry of Health to ensure that these guidelines are rolled out to the whole country. We want to work with the counties. Counties are going to be very, very critical in making sure that those guidelines are established within their precincts. And, the guidelines are quite, I've seen one of the best guidelines that we've ever seen in sickle cell disease, are the Kenyan guidelines, and they're quite detailed. So we hope that by training healthcare providers, by rolling those guidelines out, a lot of difference will be put in place.
Let's take a break. It's 25 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having a conversation with Dr. Nathan Mulure. He is the head of public affairs at Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa. What do you know about sickle cell disease? Do you know what it is? Have you ever come across somebody who has sickle cell? So what do you know about it? That's what we're doing this morning, creating awareness about sickle cell and how we need to, basically everybody needs to understand it and how we can manage it. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. SpiceFM, KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort.
Nafandi umbo yako iko na nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Everything nice, SpiceFM.
There's a drizzle in some parts of Nairobi at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 16. Sunny conditions in Nakuru at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's cloudy in Nyeri at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 14. And Eldoret is sunny at 19, we'll see highs of 25. Light rain in parts of Mombasa at 28, highs of 32 and lows of 25. While in Malindi, raining as well at 29, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Kisumu is sunny at 22, we'll see highs of 30. While in Kakamega, highs of 30 as well, coming down to lows of 16 with sunny skies throughout today. Kampala is sunny at 23 as well, highs of 29 and lows of 18. While light rain continues in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 32 and lows of 24. Cloudy conditions over Johannesburg skies at 14. Highs of 24. Lagos raining at 25. Highs of 31 and lows of 24. And Kinshasa is raining as well at 23. Highs of 33 and lows of 22. Of things that don't make sense this morning, quite a lot of traffic. What is happening on Thika Road today? Not moving, and it's red all the way into the city centre today, and folks are not having a good time, asking why is this? We're not quite sure what the problem is. Kiambu Road also joining in that today. We're looking at Ngong Road all the way to Karen. Is an absolute parking lot today. Doesn't make sense there either for a lot of folks as we're trying to travel through. What's going on, guys? Will you let us know? Are you in that area? Tell us what's happening. Unfortunately, there's no alternate route right now. You have to stick to that. The Southern Bypass will then deliver you to Ngong Road. It'll deliver you to Langata Road. But then it seems that you're going to get stuck there. Also, we're seeing traffic continuing on Langata Road. Bagathi Way now is absolutely packed from beginning to Ngong Road. Ngong Road also joining with that drama. Huru Highway has been that way since a few minutes after 6 a.m. And that continues today. Outer Ring. Absolute mess this morning, guys. We have to keep an eye on that and see what happens in a short while. Let's stick it out and see what we can do. But talk to us on SpiceFM KE. If you find a good route or you find out what the problem is, text us as well on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
How are
Nairobi.
you doing wherever you are tuned in this morning on Spice FM, KTN Home or online? This is the Situation Room. In the room this morning is Eric Latiff and Ndu Okoh. And our guest is Dr. Nathan Mulure. He's the head of public affairs at Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa. We are talking about sickle cell awareness. And Doc, of all the things that you've told us, let's look at the country, Kenya. Are there some parts of the country where sickle cell is more prevalent than others?
Yes, definitely. There are parts of country that are quite afflicted by sickle cell disease. This is in Western Kenya. Mm-hmm. And also Nyanza province and down to the coast, Kwale area, Taita Taveta area as well. Quite high incidence of sickle cell disease.
Is there any reason?
Yes. The reason actually is that, first of all, like we said, people marry within the communities. So if the trait is there, then you find that it continues getting propagated within those communities. The second reason is that the sickle cell itself seemed to be protective against getting malaria. It was a survival technique for the human being. Those who have the sickle cell trait and disease then don't get afflicted by malaria. So they tend to survive in malarious regions, and which is Western Kenya, and also in the coastal province. So it was a survival technique by the cell. Unfortunately, the consequences are also quite severe in terms of getting the disease itself. Yeah.
So not everybody who has a sickle cell gets sick.
Exactly. Yes, the people who have the trait. You know, the human red blood cell, we can call it, HbAA. That's a normal human red blood cell. The carrier is HbAs. So the S is the carrier. The sickle cell patient is HbSS. So when you have SS, you have the sickle cell disease. When you have AS, you have the trait.
Okay.
So if your mother had AS and your father has AS, there's a 25% chance that there'll be an SS in that family.
Okay.
Hence, you find
amongst any of the children.
amongst any of the children, yeah,
Okay.
25% chance. They can be lucky sometimes that all the kids don't have the disease at all, but definitely there are those who will be carriers in that family. So, unfortunately, some end up with SS, which is a sickle cell disease, and then suffer the consequences throughout their lives. Yeah.
So there are many people who basically have the AS and they
Yes.
don't know. They marry somebody who has the AS, they don't know.
Definitely.
And there's a chance that their child could have the SS.
If both parents are carriers,
Yes.
yes, definitely. There's a chance of 25% that one of the children will have the disease itself.
Okay. And then nobody else maybe has ever had the disease. So there will be that whole issue among the community of why is this child crying all the time? I mean, why is this child different from the other children? Why is this child different from the other children in the village?
Exactly.
Now, how much, having interacted with all these communities, how much awareness is there in the communities, especially in these areas where you're saying have high prevalence?
Yes, it is still low awareness. It's very low. And you find that sometimes in families, there are those families where the babies are dying at a very early age, 5 years, and people start looking at that family and say, that family, there must be something wrong with that family. Maybe that lady was bewitched along the line.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a neighbor who looked at them with bad eyes. Why are the kids dying? Before 5 years dead. This could be sickle cell disease, and unless the doctor has that clinical acumen to suspect that this could be a sickle cell disease case, they don't even test. We've seen patients who have been treated day in, day out for pneumonia, for malaria. They're always sick. They're always in hospital. So it's routine, antibiotics, routine antimalarials. Nobody wants to check about the sickle cell disease. So we need to really sensitize healthcare providers that they need to have a clinical index of suspicion to test for that. And those that get tested early and put on treatment, they have fewer crises. They basically live sort of a normal life. And that's where we want to go, to really increase awareness. Awareness in the community also is very, very low. Stigmatization is rife. People who are always sick, people look at them differently. This child is always sickly. The sickle cell patients also don't thrive in terms of weight. They find an adult patient, weighing in their 30s, in their 40 kilograms. So they're deprived of that weight. They look different. They, physically as well, because of the many insults that they've gotten in the crisis. Yeah.
So then we're looking at a clearly poorer quality of life. But from what you're saying, if detected early enough, and you're talking about by the time they're still infants, detected early enough, then there can be an improvement on the quality of life that they would otherwise experience?
Definitely, if they are detected early. And that's what we're now proposing to the government of Kenya. We need to put in place newborn screening. Universal newborn screening. I know it's an expensive, costly affair, but it's worth the money, because if you have that newborn universal screening, then when babies are born in the maternity, within, they're tested for sickle cell, and most of those highly prevalent counties, can actually target those counties, so that all babies who are born are detected early, and if they're detected to have sickle cell disease, then we also have what we call reverse cascade training, testing. The siblings of that child, the near relatives of that child, can also be tested. And if they're found out to have the sickle cell trait, then they have that knowledge that they have the trait. And even as they progress in life, they have that in mind. So universal newborn screening would really change the tide against sickle cell disease.
I have to ask, this treatment, obviously, what does it do? Because you're dealing with a situation where the red blood cell is already shaped. Save for the therapy that you talk about, going in and changing the shape of the cell, right? So that oxygen can then, be delivered. I'm interested to know exactly what this treatment then does. Because you have pain management, which is a different kind of treatment. But what does the sickle cell treatment that's available now, what does it do for the patient?
Yeah, so the sickle cell drug that we have today and how it works is that it improves the hemoglobin F. We also have the hemoglobin F, which is the fetal hemoglobin. When babies are born, when they're still young, they have the fetal hemoglobin, which is sort of protective against the crisis. So this drug basically improves the production of that hemoglobin F, so that it is in higher quantities. Even as a child grows, it's still available in higher quantities, and that prevents the crisis by even 50%. You're talking about if a child has a reduction of crisis by 50%, that improves the quality of life tremendously. Because that crisis really is what destroys the patient's organs. It destroys the, causing stroke. And resultant effect is that the patient has a very short life. We've seen documentaries of patients. I recall a boy who was saying, living in the estate, and he was saying that all his friends keep on asking him, "Hey, you're still alive?" Because it was a very depressing video that was on YouTube, and so he's being challenged because they expect him to not to live for so long. So whenever they see him, "Oh, you're still alive, you're still alive." But this guy was a very strong boy and very motivated.
He's fighting.
Yes, he was fighting. And I think if these kids can get education on how to avoid the crisis, because they can actually tell when they play football for a long time and they don't drink water, the mamas will tell them, please drink water. Those that don't drink water, you find that actually end up with a crisis. So yes, they have played for long, they have enjoyed their day, but at night, there's a crisis. During cold weather, in June, July, August, again, many know that if they expose themselves to cold, they get a crisis. They have learned to keep themselves warm, they don't go out, and they pass through that period without a crisis. Exam period in school is another one, where when kids get stressed, just that stress itself can trigger a crisis. And unfortunately, when teachers don't understand this, they always think that this child is avoiding exams, So they, under so much pressure, they about to do exams, they're in hospital for 2 weeks. When they come out, exams are over. And it's quite a challenging period for children as well. So teachers need to understand that these children are special children. They need special care. They need to be treated in a special way to enable them to progress in life. And in countries where this is quite advanced, sickle cell patients have become doctors, they become MPs, and they can lead a normal life if that is allowed.
So it seems as if the awareness then needs to spread across sector, beyond, the medical sector. Because now we're talking about teachers, students in school who've missed 3 weeks of school at one go, and then there's not understanding if a situation of stress arises, the likelihood of getting into pre-crisis, gets higher. So it looks as though many more than within the medical fraternity need to have this awareness, need to be aware of what is going on.
You said it right. We need to go beyond the healthcare system. Education, there's a lot of work to be done in education. In the churches, in the communities, a lot needs to be done also, because when people associate sickle cell disease with witchcraft, again, there's a lot of ignorance about that. Families need to understand how to take care of these patients, because those that understand, you find that their patients in their family entourage can lead a normal life, because avoid the crisis simply means if I have no crisis now, if I'm a patient and I have no crisis, I'm leading a normal life. If I can postpone that crisis for as long as possible and even avert it, then I'm living a normal life. That needs to be inculcated, that we can actually achieve that kind of status.
I'm curious, why is it called crisis? Why not episode, attack, or others that we see being used in the medical field?
Yes, it is called a crisis because it's a crisis. And if you go to the medical realms, it's vaso-occlusive crisis. Vaso-occlusive simply means the vessels have been plugged. When you plug a blood vessel, you deprive that organ of oxygen. If it's a kidney, for example, if it's the heart, if it's the brain, that area dies, literally dies. And the consequences, if that happens many times, the mortality goes up. Patients, live to their 20s, 30s. They've had so much damage that at the time they are in their 30s, they're basically having a very short lifespan. So if we avoid those crises through treatment, through proper care, through reduction of stigma, because stigma is a very big barrier to treatment. We've seen patients who, when they go to hospital and they're not treated well, they're even told they are becoming drug addicts.
They won't come back.
They won't come back. They actually manage that crisis in their own home environment. And that pain is endured, and that suffering is endured until they're out of it.
And the damage to the organs.
And the damage to the organs.
Every time the crisis then occurs.
Exactly. And that adds to the mortality increase in this category of patients.
With the issue of now getting healthcare, does insurance cover sickle cell? Because we see many insurance covers will talk about, pre-existing conditions and all this and the other, and there are things that they don't cover.
Yeah.
Do many insurance providers in the country cover sickle cell?
Yes. So, for example, and that's a very good question that you've asked about insurance cover and all this story about pre-existing illness. Some don't cover, of course. And NHIF, for example, only covers when the patient is admitted at hospital. We're trying to talk to the NHIF today and even model that if they are able to cover for this treatment that's available, that is quite cost effective and reduce the chance of admission to hospital by 50%, then the country has saved money. Because when a child goes to hospital for 2 weeks, there's blood transfusion, there's a bed space, there's the caregiver also who accompanies the child. If you look at the cost per year, it could easily be 100, 200K that the patient actually has to get from NHIF. Because and if the patient also goes into kidney damage and is transplanted, another cost. If we can avoid all these disasters from happening, the cost savings is huge. So we're actually talking to NHIF now and see if they can cover for that drug, outpatient cover. That would be a game changer.
And what is the average cost of now the treatment?
Well, it varies, I think, depending on the weight of the patient per kilogram body weight. I could say perhaps, maybe $20 for a month of treatment.
So 2,000 bob a month.
Yeah.
That's also pretty high.
It's high, and not forgetting that also they need anti-malarials, prophylaxis. They need to be put on folic acid. They need vaccines for prevention of pneumonia and the like.
So combined?
Yes, combined.
The entire therapy then is coming to what, 5,000 thereabouts?
It could be easily 5K, yeah.
Every month?
Yeah.
This is pretty high.
It is high, but if you look at if you avoid all those costs, admission to hospital for 2 weeks, 3 times a year, you're talking about easily $500,000 in terms of total costs. So I still think that if we put these patients on treatment and they're vaccinated against infections, they're put on a drug that can help build up the hemoglobin F, the cost-benefit analysis is still higher when you give these children treatment.
In terms of numbers, just basically average numbers, what kind of numbers are we talking about in the country in terms of patients who have sickle cell disease in Kenya?
Yeah, that number is not known as we speak today. There's lack of data. There have been estimates talking about 100K, 200K, but really nobody has the right answer. I think this time the Ministry of Health is trying to build up a database with all these activities that also KTN is supporting. That database will now start helping us to know the number of people living with sickle cell disease in the country. In terms of the newborns who have the sickle cell disease, I think the estimates say 6,000 per year are born of the disease in Kenya. In Uganda, it's much higher, at about 11,000. So with those kind of numbers now we can start aggregating to have a semblance of what the numbers really are. But to point a finger on a certain number, right now nobody can do that because there's no data.
Right. In the medical fraternity, more recently than not, the focus is now being geared towards preventative care as opposed to curative care. Now, when we're looking at sickle cell, clearly, as you've mentioned, one of the tenets that you'll be looking at is curative in the sense that you want to then advise people to know their state in terms of sickle cell, in terms of the gene that they may be carrying. To me, that looks like a radical form of preventative care, but absolutely necessary when it comes to this, because that is one way you can be guaranteed of making sure that your offspring, that you're not adding to the numbers of those who have sickle cell. So what kind of attention then in this awareness then would be pegged on that kind of preventative care, really making sure that communities, families, units understand what essentially could happen if you're paired with somebody who is a carrier as well?
Yeah, that calls for education in the community. And by doing all these activities and talking about sickle cell disease, even on TV right now, that adds to the body of knowledge for the sickle cell disease community. So it's really, really important to know your status, know your genotype. We've had campaigns, for example, in Ghana, where we rallied people to know their status, know their genotype. And it's a one-off test. That's the beauty about sickle cell disease. That it's like a blood group. Once you have blood group
Once you know, you owe.
You know
You'll be
it-
owe the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage people to really know their status. As you do your blood group, can you also do a sickle cell test? Know that status. Keep it in your heart. Know it. If it's AA, for example, when you have no carrier at all, then it's fine. But if you are a carrier, then you need to be very careful as you progress in life. And we can't be prescriptive as healthcare workers or companies to force people to go and have it tested. No.
So you say it's a pretty straightforward test. So I walk into any health facility and I say I just want to know my status.
10 minutes, you have your status. Yeah.
Right.
Rapid diagnostic test. Yeah.
Would you suggest it for children? And I say this as parents taking their children, who clearly may be normal, but possibility of you being a carrier, whether it's you've had an incident in your family or not. Would you suggest that for children now so that they grow up knowing what their status is?
Yes, I think any time you have an opportunity to have that test done, I think best is to do it. It's a one-off test, and that test is valid the rest of your life. It will never change. So the earlier you know the test status, the better.
How much does this cost?
I wouldn't put a finger on the cost, but I think from what we have done in terms of market research, I think $5 or less, about 500 shillings. Yeah, that would give you the test. Yeah.
Okay. Doc, everything that we've said today basically is just pointing down towards a need for increased awareness of sickle cell. For people just to understand what sickle cell is, for people to know how to tell when somebody is in a crisis and what they need to do. For example, like we're saying, the caregivers, what do you need to look out for? What do you need to do if a child under your care goes into an attack? Or if you're in a school environment, your classmates, you need to understand what they have. Have there been any efforts towards creating this awareness, outside of just the awareness month, in terms of campaigns and roadshows into schools, into communities, into churches, like you said, chiefs barazas and all, anything like that? No?
Yes, a lot has been done, but what I can say is that when a child has a crisis, the best place to take the child is a hospital. It's a medical emergency and has to be treated as such. I wouldn't tell people in schools now to start putting painkillers in their closets and all that. No. Best place is to go to hospital. The guidelines are very explicit on what to be done. The caregivers know what to do in terms of alleviating that crisis. Could be fluid rehydration, could be painkillers and injectables. So all that needs to be taken care of in the environment, in the confines of the hospital. However, there are many, many ways of knowing that one can get a crisis. And people who have lived with sickle cell disease for a long time know that if they do certain things, they're going to get a crisis. And sure enough, when they do them, they get a crisis. We've seen patients who, whenever they go for swimming, they know they get a crisis. So they avoid swimming. Those that play football for long hours, they know that they get a crisis in the evening. So they avoid those long exposure and long stresses. So, and also the applications now available, medical applications, where you can actually key in your data, and the app can predict the crisis and also alert you to avoid certain situations. So there's a lot of stuff that can actually be put in place, employed to avoid a crisis. I think for us, what would be really critical is to ensure that patients are living a crisis-free life. That greatly improves the quality of life for that patient. And there are many things that can be done to increase that knowledge on how to avoid a crisis. And in the event that the crisis happens, then what is to be done? Rush to hospital, hoping that the healthcare providers in that scenario will be able to take care of this patient quickly. Because patients go there as an emergency, but they're told to wait for even 3 hours before they're attended to. This is an emergency, and the healthcare workers need to have that keen eye that it's an emergency. Let the cough and cold wait. And let me sort out this patient who has a crisis. Because if that doesn't happen, next time they have a crisis, they'll stay at home. And that leads to organ damage, leads to vaso-occlusive, can lead to stroke, and many things. So let us have that very keen acumen as clinical healthcare providers to treat that as an emergency, because it is an emergency.
We've seen the disappearance of few diseases around the world. And in vaccination drives sometimes have led to then the disappearance of certain diseases. Polio in some countries, we had things like, typhoid that disappeared in other countries. Is this one of those diseases that you can say, even though there's no cure today, that with this awareness that's being built up, with the recommendations that you give to individuals, knowing their status, that we can actually see a time in the future when this too can be eradicated because now people are making conscious efforts about who they procreate with, essentially?
That is very well said. I think sickle cell disease, and I also always add cervical cancer. Those are two diseases that can actually be, made into rare diseases. Right now they're common, but if you have an action plan, even say Vision 2050, and the government puts in place all the efforts to make this disease a rare disease, it is possible to make it a very rare disease. And the bit about that, when it's a rare disease, there are a lot of resources to take care of those patients. When it's common and there's a crisis, then it becomes very burdensome for the healthcare ecosystem. So yes, the answer is yes, we can actually make this a very rare disease if we have an action plan and follow through that action plan, and in the next 30 or 40 years, really reduce the number of patients who are born with the sickle cell disease. But it requires a lot of concerted efforts.
Right.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of concerted effort and leadership.
Leadership. Yeah.
Have you seen any semblance of that, of conversations that are now taking place in the healthcare system, in the sector, saying, let's start talking about this and how we can actualize it?
Yes, I've seen that. Starting with the Ministry of Health, there's now a strong department that is taking care of sickle cell disease, NCD department in the MOH, which has done a lot and a tremendous job. Tremendous job. Creating awareness, of course, and also availing the medication for sickle cell disease in hospitals, putting in place the guidelines. Those are major steps that were inexistent a few years back, and it's really the beginning of a journey that can actually change the tide of sickle cell disease in the country.
Dr. Ari, thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you,
and
my pleasure.
shedding all this light on sickle cell. There are very many people who I'm sure did not know much about sickle cell, who know now something about sickle cell. And if we continue these conversations, then we can get to that point where we all know about sickle cell, then we can all together walk towards that journey of making it a rare disease.
It should be a rare disease, and very rare.
Very rare disease.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Mulure is the head of public affairs at Novartis Sub-Saharan Africa. He's been with us talking about sickle cell awareness, and we've been live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM and online. Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. We've been last since the top of the hour, but the conversations continue. What's got into my eye? The conversations continue on SpiceFM. Around the country, 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi. A very good morning to you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Okay.
94.4 Spice FM.
Tested. Just check your blood type. Go do a blood test and know whether you carry a sickle cell gene.
Yeah, and do it for your children as well. Because they're the ones now, essentially, who would be carrying it on. If they have it, then you can make a decision. Therefore, I mean, it looks to me, this is one of those things that you can actually, prescribe before.
Yep.
That you will then make sure that everybody being on the same wavelength in terms of information then makes a decision about, offspring. Because I think about it, I think everybody in Nigeria, as they are making the decision on getting married, that's one of the first questions they ask.
Everybody.
Literally everybody. My mother asked
everybody,
me,
all 100 million plus.
Well, no, I'm trying to remember that it's and that's what I'm saying. It's such a widespread conversation that have you checked your AS or SS? Have you checked? Because so many, you heard the numbers, so many people suffer then from it. Those who didn't check then before are saying, oh, I wish I had checked. I wish I had checked before I went into this. And when I say everybody, of course not 100 million people at the same time, but, saying that it's such a conversation because of the suffering that people have seen. All right, how do you now make
sure? Got to that point where there is a lot of awareness.
Yeah, because of the suffering that has happened.
And that means also that there is reduced stigma.
No, not necessarily. The stigma is still very, very alive and well.
So those who are stigmatizing, what do they say? It's what still those things of you're bewitched and all?
You're bewitched, or it's a weak genetic makeup, you're weak, your children are, of weak stock. Things like that. Some terrible things actually said.
So let's create more and more awareness about this. And yes, there are people who undergo a lot of pain, and you can hear the cost of this as well. NHIF, as the doc was saying, it's a conversation that needs to happen at that level, at policy level, at government level, and NHIF level, and other insurance providers as well. If we can invest in this preventive and management of the disease, then we also reduce the cost of hospitalization. It's still high. If you're talking about an average of about 5,000 shillings a month, that is pretty high. And a lot of effort needs to be made. So that cost as well can come down. In the next hour, we have a conversation about insurance. How timely. Yes. And how insurance is also now adapting to the times and going with the times. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Attorney General Paul Kihara and IG Hilary Mutimbai have been summoned to appear in court tomorrow to explain why terror suspect Elgiva Bwire and his lawyer Hassan Nandwa were being produced in court last Friday. This as the DCI is offering a 10 million shillings reward for information on 5 terrorism suspects who include Bwire, Salim Mohammed, Trevor Ndwiga, Mohammed Abubakar and Barigi Haila. Tales about missing terror convict Bwire took a new twist after the state announced that he'd gone underground, is armed and dangerous, and put a bounty on his head. Bwire alongside his lawyer Nandwa and his mother were taken by unknown persons on the same day, but Nandwa and the rest except him have since been released. Police have launched investigations into the killings of a young couple in Umoja Zone 8 house in Kamukunji, Nairobi County. The bodies of the 18-year-old man and his girlfriend were discovered after their phones were unanswered for days. The DCI said on arrival to the scene, they discovered the body of the young man's lover just by the toilet with multiple stab wounds on the shoulder, breast and lower abdomen. The man's body, which was in the bedroom floor, had multiple stab wounds on the neck and a deep cut on the neck. Homicide detectives have launched a manhunt for the killers. Now, the Council of Governors now wants several changes made in KEMSA to be more beneficial to the counties. Counties rely on KEMSA to ensure that the provision of health services are not affected. Among the recommendations from the Council of Governors is to reform the Imports Department to be accountable to county governments, just like they are to the national government. Some parents in Trans Nzoia County have urged the government to reinstate corporal punishment in schools as a way of dealing with the school fires. One of the parents, Michael Serone, said that a large percentage of students are stubborn and have been unattended to by their parents, making it difficult for teachers to punish them for fear of being prosecuted. Serone has suggested that CCTV cameras be installed in every school building to deal with such incidents. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has confirmed that it has resumed the constituency office-based continuous voter registration CVR and revision of the voters' roll upon conclusion of the National Enhanced Continuous Voter Registration exercise. The Commission, however, notes that the CVR exercise is for new registration, transfer of registration status, change of particulars and deletion of dead voters. Through a statement undersigned by Commission Chairperson of Fula Chebukati, IEBC retweeted that the resumed CVR exercise is for eligible persons who have not registered as voters before. Now, top officials in Nairobi County continue to plan the swearing-in ceremony of Anne Kananu as the county's new governor. Although the exact date has not been announced, the Nairobi County Communications Office has indicated that activities are scheduled to take place this week. This after former Governor Mike Sonko lost a case he had filed at the Supreme Court seeking to hold Kananu's swearing-in. It will be remembered that Sonko himself appointed Kananu as deputy governor in January 2020. Two cabinet secretaries have ignored demands from some politicians allied to Deputy President William Ruto's wing to stop engaging in political activities. Defense CS Ujiro Malo and his agriculture counterpart Peter Munya have said they will never be intimidated by anyone, insisting that the Kenyan constitution gives every citizen the right to political expression, including CSs. In addition, they have said that ministers are appointed by the president and therefore have the freedom to defend the policies and agendas of the executive government, and that should not be interpreted as politics. Now, a U.S. judge has ruled a congressional committee investigating the Capitol riot can access some of ex-President Donald Trump's White House records. Trump had argued that materials were covered by executive privilege, which protects the confidentiality of some White House communications. The inquiry is trying to find out if Trump had foreknowledge of the riot. The ruling came on the day 10 Trump aides were issued with legal summonses to testify before lawmakers. Hundreds of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building and disrupted the official certification of President Joe Biden's election victory on 6th of January this year. And Vihiga Queens defeated the Moroccan side Asfer 2-0 as they put their CAF Women's Champions League campaign back on track at the Al Salam Stadium in Cairo, Egypt. Queens' quest for the continental champion had begun with a 1-0 loss at the hands of Mamelodi Sundowns and needed to bounce back. Violet Wanyonyi and Gentrix Shikangwa scored in either half to secure victory that leaves the Kenyans needing to draw against Nigeria's River Angels to advance from Group B. We wish the Vihiga Queens the very best as they represent the country. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so continues this morning on Mombasa Road, and we're heading out into the city, and not too badly coming off in Maradaima, but where it does get crazy is on Uhuru Highway, and it's not looking pretty at all, guys. Inbound to the city, that continues with its madness today, and we're also seeing coming off Jogo Road, still quite heavy. The Thika Superhighway, that has not let up in the last 2 hours, and the question is, what on earth is going on? Not quite sure just yet. Been no accidents reported, at least not now, but the traffic is still crazy. We still see it coming off Kiambu Road as well. Langata Road still is a mess to contend with right now. Getting off Jogo Road then towards Landis out onto Haile Selassie also is rather slow this morning. So we're still in traffic hour, almost 9 o'clock, and it's still quite heavy. Continue to keep an eye on things. Let's see what it looks like in about half an hour. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start.
It is 7 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. This is now the fourth hour of the show this morning on this 10th day of November 2021. Happy Wednesday, wherever you're tuned in. Today's proverb on behalf of CT Muga is from Rwanda. A large eye does not mean keen vision. A large eye does not mean keen vision. So we continue with our conversation this morning about what is happening in our life. Let's talk about insurance. And our guest is Ezekiel Masharia. He is the MD and Chief Actuary at an organization called Kenbright. He'll tell us all about it. Ezekiel, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes, thanks. My name is Ezekiel Masharia. I'm an actuary, and I work for a company called Kenbright. We do insurance brokerage, actuarial consulting, and also health admin. So my work is on a day-to-day is designing products as an actuary, but also help the insurance companies distribute those products.
Okay. Sawa. So we'll understand Kenbright shortly. Yeah. Let's understand actuaries.
Yeah.
Apart from being the guys who score A's in high school, what else are actuaries?
So apart from scoring A's, the actuary is supposed to predict the future for the insurer. Because Eric comes to the insurer and says, I want to insure my life from healthcare risks like cancer, and the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I want to insure my car in case it gets hit. I want to buy a life policy in case of demise. I want my child to have some money.
Mm.
So my work is to look at the trends, look at the market, look historically, and come up with a number. So when they give you that number, 20,000, that's the number we've come up with based on the stats. Then we track that number, and we track whether 20K was right. And then if it was right, great. If it was wrong, we adjust the price.
What do you use to track and know whether it's right or wrong?
Data analytics. We have a team of data analytics people who track data. So collection of data is very critical for us.
The discipline of actuary, when you're saying that you're predicting
statistical models.
It's statistical models.
Yes.
You're looking at this and then you say the possibility of it going south or it going north.
Yes.
Based on X factor.
Based on X factor.
Yes. It's really statistical models, but let me simplify it.
Damify it.
Let me dumb it down.
Yes.
So let me give you a simple question. How many people do you think right now in Kenyatta Hospital? Do you think there's at least one person in Kenyatta Hospital?
Yes.
Just one at least?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. I think so.
Would you put your hand and cut it right now, knowing that I'm sure there is somebody at Kenyatta Hospital?
I am sure that I think.
Now that you know,
I am sure that I think. There is no. The question is, do I think? I'm answering the question. I'm sure that I think there's one person at KNH right now.
So the question is this: what's the person's name?
I have no clue.
So that's really that's the magic. Is that we're able to know that there's going to be somebody at Kenyatta Hospital, but you don't know that person's name.
Okay.
And that's how you expand those trends. You're able to know how many accidents will happen, but you don't know which car will have the accident. So that's really how those statistical models work. It's called law of large numbers. Yeah, and other distributions.
So then that means you're playing in the sectors where you're guaranteed to have large numbers.
Yes, insurance requires large numbers. That's critical. And that's where you hear things like we need critical mass.
Yep.
Yes.
And yet, with all that thing of insurance requires large numbers, in a population of 48 million Kenyans, how many are insured?
In terms of population, people, it's about 15%. I know everybody talks about insurance penetration. Insurance penetration actually means how much money is in the insurance sector compared to the GDP. Yeah, so that's about 2.5%. It can never be 100%. Otherwise, there are no other sectors, hospitality, construction. So the deal number is about 7% for insurance penetration. But in terms of lives covered, insurance is about 15%.
15%?
Well, yeah, 1.5. About 6 million lives, 7 million lives.
And the insurance sector has been in this country for how many years again?
Yeah, many years.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, with the law of large numbers, why is it that it hasn't reached, a higher percentage, 30%, 40%, 50, 60% of Kenya's population being insured?
I think the biggest risk issue has been here is that the distribution system has not been able to provide those products at the right price. And we were talking earlier, the example where an insurance company gives you a product, but because they were trying to target a certain price, they remove some benefits. But the consumer doesn't know that. So they get very angry and say, oh, I didn't know. For example, there's something called excess in insurance. Okay, one thing insurance companies have, they have very hard words, like excess, which should just mean small claims, Like small claims are not paid by the insurer up to maybe a certain number.
Yeah.
So, but the consumer doesn't know about this. So you get hit by a boat down the road, and then you say,
excess.
Insure my car, and you're told excess. And you're like, what is that?
So what's wrong with telling the consumer, who essentially is going to keep your boat floating, about the truth of the situation? Because that's what we're dealing with right now. I can understand that you say you want to hide the words in the whole, legalese of the situation. But the person who is essentially paying the premiums, right, should then know the real situation, don't you think?
Yeah, and you see, it's a broken telephone thing. So the actuaries, the guys who are designing these products, have all those things nicely set out, policy wordings, but then somebody comes and say, you know what, we need to fit this in one form. And, it gets compressed. Some words get into fine print level.
Lost in translation.
And then at some point, people stop reading some of those things. And then, culture enters. And the risk we have with insurance is that a bit of it is mandatory. It's not like buying bread where, you don't have to buy it.
Yes.
But insurance is mandatory. Some aspects of it.
Yes.
Let me give you an example. Like motor insurance, the third-party risk, where if you hit a guy on the road, that's mandatory. However, the comprehensive side, which is you insuring your own car, that's not mandatory. But because there are components which are mandatory, consumers tend to just assume this whole thing,
is
mandatory, and they don't read the fine print. So they're not really consuming a product. Yeah, it's like when you're buying an iPhone, you check the features. They're just paying. What is there? Yeah. So one of the key risks we're looking at is the distribution network being able to communicate. So broken telephone comes from the guys designing the products, going to the marketing team, which goes to the distribution network. Remember, a lot of insurance is distributed by brokers and agents and bank insurance in the banks. So by the time that filters down to the consumer, it gets lost in translation. So one of the things the insurance sector is hoping is the digital disruption. Once it comes in, that should enable the consumers to actually have real-time access to information.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like I've said before, the government. It's what do I call it? Not mentality. It's an attitude issue. The attitude. All those years, 50 years going on to 60 years, the insurance industry, with all the money that it makes, could have fine-tuned this distribution system. It hasn't.
Yes, that's true.
You have developed a product at the back, in the back room. You have rolled it out, and there's marketing, there's the printing of the material, then there is using those agents and brokers to go and sell.
Yeah.
Do the agents and brokers understand the product? That's not the point, according to the attitude of the insurer.
Yeah.
I want product out, I want money in.
Yeah.
And when consumers start coming back with feedback, over the years, the insurer should have noticed feedback I'm getting is showing that in fact, the insurer has noticed, because that's what you're saying, that there's a breakdown somewhere in the communication of what we are selling.
Yeah.
Improve it. We haven't seen any improvement. As I'm saying, it doesn't matter the channel, whether you're using a human being, whether you're using tech. If the mindset of the insurer is develop product, sell it, bring money, we are never going to move.
Actually, just to answer what the statement you've made, it's true that there's an issue, okay? But the answer to that is that there's fragmentation of the market. So when a market is fragmented, it's very hard to implement what you're saying. Because on one hand, assume, this market has 60 players, 60 insurers. Imagine this market of 60 players, you as the only player start saying, you know what, before you sell my product, you have to go to this classroom and learn these things. And the guy says, you know what, I have 59 other options who are not forcing me to go into some classroom. So that's where the risk is. And because of that fragmentation, that change is not coming in. So you're seeing larger players trying to come up with their own agents who they train. Yeah, so but you see, at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't know the difference between insurer A and insurer B. In fact, most consumers don't know who's the largest insurer. So that creates that issue. So I would say it's a fragmentation issue. But where the market is going, the regulator is actually very strong on this. They have just come up with a new law for micro insurance. They reduce capital. For you to set up an insurance company, you require 600 million. Now, for micro insurance, they're saying you only need 50 million to open up shop. And the hope is that these new guys will come in and essentially insure the risk and train the guys and actually sell the product. Then now the large insurance can be left with more of the larger risks. People understand what is being covered.
Okay. Looking at the uptake of insurance in the country at the moment, across board, clearly the most popular right now is motor vehicle insurance.
Actually, it's not.
Is it?
Actually, the if you look at general insurance, last year insurance collected 130 billion. Of that, a third went to medical, about 44 billion. A third went to motor, and a third went to the others.
Okay, so medical insurance, is that uptake on an individual level, or is that uptake because you work in an organization?
So corporates take up about 75 to 80% of our money. Retail is still low at about 20%.
So individuals who are taking up insurance, then could you then say the most popular as on an individual level is motor insurance?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so, and for most people taking it because it is something that
it's mandatory.
Ought to do. It's mandatory.
Yes.
So are we then seeing a movement, or will we see a movement then of the uptake of insurance because you realize the risks that are present and then you take up this insurance, whether it's life, education, etc., to then buffer your life?
Yeah, okay. Remember, we have to understand the market first so that I answer your question. You as Ndu, when you sit there, you know with guarantee that if you're sick and or you're bereaved and you put out forms to your friends here in the office and say, okay, I'm bereaved, and Eric goes with a form and says, help.
Let's contribute.
People will contribute.
Yeah.
So the social fabric is still strong to support you. Yeah. So you see, you have alternatives. So when you're hit with a catastrophe, there's a buffer for you. But the moment those buffers end, and the society becomes more stringent. I don't know if you've seen with COVID, where when COVID started and these contributions, people were contributing large amounts. Then over time, those WhatsApp groups became too many. So think of insurance as one big chama where you don't know each other. Okay, and that's really the message that should go to the market, is that I'm in a big chama, we don't know each other, and the idea is that if I get hit, we put all this cash in a big pool. If you get hit, I take cash out. But see, now communicating that to the consumer, who has an alternative on social protection, or who doesn't trust they'll get money out. What do I mean by that is they feel they'll put cash in the pool, but
they'll never be a beneficiary.
But getting money out of the pool now becomes an issue.
I don't know, they're sending an investigator. Continue anyway.
So new methods can be developed. Let me give you a simple model that can be sorted for motor, for example.
Yeah.
In medical, there's something called capitation. Capitation is where hospitals are given the money. Instead of you giving the money to the insurer, then the insurer waits for you to be sick, and then they give the hospital the money. In medical, there's a structure called capitation where they actually give the hospitals the money straight up and tell them, okay, nobody's sick, here's our money. There are these 10,000 people here, treat them when they get sick. If such a structure maybe goes to motor where you get a bunch of garages and then you give them the cash up front and say, regardless of whether somebody has an accident or not, here's the cash. Somebody, and you insure, and guys subscribe, example, and then guys goes to the garages at that point. Then the insurers now will come to the back of those garages and insure if that money runs out. Those are other models which work. But remember, we've inherited our model from the day the Insurance Act was built, and then somebody came in with all these requirements. Before you do X, do Y, investigate. Some of these things are in law, right? Yeah. So until those things are restructured, the current methodology of fixing your car requires you to go to the police, get an investigator, get somebody
because
to
the law
assess.
Because the law demands it.
They're set in law.
Okay. How big is the cake in the insurance sector in Kenya?
As I said, it's about 200 billion to 200 and something.
200 billion.
Yeah.
Would you say that the insurance sector in the country is significantly influential when it comes to policy and the policy direction?
I would say
okay.
yes.
So if they wanted to,
yeah,
they could lobby, launch an advocacy campaign, and have all these things that are considered bottlenecks removed.
Yes. The question is this, is that are the new models tested yet? So, it's not broken, don't fix it.
Are they testing the models?
Yeah, you need an incentive to test the model.
That's where I'm coming back to. Attitude problem.
Okay.
And I'm justifying this by saying, look, the law has told you that any vehicle on the road will give you money.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
By law. So you're sitting back there, as long as there's a Meli that has arrived in Mombasa, that is money. You know, clear. The law has also told you that any factory operating, there will be insurance for the workers.
Yeah.
The law has told you. Sit back. Don't even go.
You don't even have
they
to
will
sweat.
come.
Yeah. Actually, from workers, it's not a lot of money. Workmen compensation is about 6B. So, yeah.
6B. But still.
Yeah.
The law has also, not the law, but practice is also showing you, insurance best practices offer, incentives to your workers. One of the incentives is medical.
Yeah.
Sit back, money is coming. That is why when you look at general, 30% motor, 30% medical, a huge chunk of it is coming from just the corporate. Sit back.
Yes.
Attitude. There's no incentive at all for Kenya's insurance sector to even think outside the box.
Well, also remember, the consumer also needs to purchase his products. And, it's partnership with people like yourselves, because there has to be that conversation. Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, the consumer has alternative risk-sharing options.
Yes.
Okay? Somebody will say, let me not buy home insurance for, for theft. Let me keep that cash and, get my own self-insurance options.
Some way
to do it. Because remember, it's all about indemnity, paying you back, restoring you to where you are.
Yep.
But the consumer feels like they can do it themselves, or they're not really willing to pick up that issue. But now there's a second aspect to it, to the sector. Insurance is actually one of the few services in the world where you give them a shilling and you expect 100 shillings from them. If you go buy your phone or if you go buy bread, you give them you give the value of the product for the same. So because of that aspect of you give them a shilling and you get back 100, now there is what we call moral hazard. People tend to game the system. And that is now where a lot of restrictions, protections, assess, investigate what
to make sure
that
reduce fraud as much as possible.
This is not just fraud. There's also what we call moral hazard, where people know, as a consumer, you'll always know more about yourself and your risks than a third party. And that's where the issue is that because of that exposure, the people tend to shy away from being, coming up with all these exciting products. But things are changing. We're seeing a lot of foreign players coming with capital who can take a gamble, and we do expect in future that somebody will take a gamble and change the system.
Are there some big gambles that you've seen in other markets?
Yes, we've seen, like for example, the company called Lemonade. We saw they took a gamble and said, "Why can't we pay a claim in 90 seconds?" Yeah, and they took a gamble on it.
Where?
I think in Europe, but see, some of these people get seed funding,
Right.
Yeah, somebody comes, they get 1 billion shillings.
But once they've reviewed,
able to take a risk with it.
Yeah.
Once they've reviewed and looked at, so we said we're going to be able to settle claims within 90 minutes.
90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Yeah.
Looking back, is it working? Is it denting their books? As in, are they being played? Is their system getting gamed?
You see, remember when you get investors who have given you cash as a startup and they don't really care, in terms of what they're looking at is outcomes. They're saying, have we sold X? The outputs are not losses. That's why we saw Uber running losses for many years. The focus is how many guys have taken up the product. What's a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
So lucky for us, the regulator in Kenya, IRA, they are coming up with a sandbox. And the idea of a sandbox is break the Insurance Act, break it. That's the idea of a sandbox. And now we are seeing people like FSD Africa coming in to support those guys, to get funding. So maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe now some such fundings will come in, and we call them insurtechs, and those guys will be able to hopefully get funding. Somebody take a gamble who focuses on the outcomes and not the money, and then things will change, for obviously.
Okay, so as we are looking at things then that are being developed, right, that would then give incentive to the market to then pick up on insurance, what are some of the things that are currently being developed that will say, you know what, folks, you actually have to, that whole community charmer that you were talking about, realizing that is actually important for you to take it up.
Yeah.
What are some of the things then that are being developed in the market that would then say, all right, folks realize the importance of this and they're taking up some of these products?
Okay, I think for us, people are trying to just address components of the process. Nobody right now is doing the whole journey. People are doing components. There's a friend of mine who's doing something on telematics, which is trying to talk about usage-based insurance. So let's say you only drive your car once a month. Can you pay a fraction of the insurance cost, usage-based? Yeah? If you're a better driver, you drive faster than others. There's a product by Heritage.
A safer driver.
But those are components of it. Even at Scanbright, we've launched a product on the M-Pesa app which just addresses the issue of viewing prices and buying online, on the M-Pesa app.
So you can compare.
Yeah, best for comparison.
Okay.
So various people are doing components of the headache, in terms of, there's a company called Solve It. They're trying to see whether they can get a guy to come to your office and value your car.
Right.
So people are doing components of that, there's a company called Pula. They're doing something on agriculture, on the paying farmers on time quickly. Okay, but right now, the capital in the market to sort out the whole process is not yet there. However, the little capital people have, they're able to sort out processes of the process. Yeah.
But Sharia, this capital is all coming from external sources.
Yeah.
The current players, especially the current big players, how much are they invested in these things that we're talking about?
Current big players investing in those big things, they're very selective. So I'd put it that way. Yeah.
Attitude. Let's take a break. It's 9:30, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having a conversation with Ezekiel Masharia. He is the MD and Chief Actuary at Kenbright. And Kenbright is an organization that does many things: actuarial, investments, advisory services, pensions, health, reinsurance, insurance, product development for insurance sector, which is what we're talking about this morning. What is the next phase for insurers and insurance in this country? And also, in terms of awareness, is there sufficient awareness of what insurance is all about and how insurance works, and especially from an actuarial perspective? What is this insurance thing? Is it just put money because the government told you to put money and then go demand money when you get an accident? 9:30. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it
own
up.
money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room.
Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions in parts of Nairobi at 20, highs of 25 and lows of 16 today. It's mostly sunny at 20 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Light rain in parts of Nyeri at 19, highs of 23 and lows of 14. 25 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny and will come down to lows of 13. It continues to rain in Mombasa at 30, highs of 32 and lows of 25, while in Malindi, light rain as well at 30, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Kisumu is sunny at 27, we'll see highs of 30. We'll see highs of 30 as well in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 27. Kampala is mostly sunny at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 18. And Dar es Salaam raining at 28, highs of 32 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is cloudy at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 14. And Lagos is rainy at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 24. The rains have stopped in Kinshasa for now at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 23. Freezing conditions in Paris at 0. It only go to a high of 8 today, lows of 0. Out in Beijing, it's sunny at 14. 15 will be the high and lows of 4. London is mostly cloudy at 11. Highs of 15 and lows of 11. Clear conditions in early Wednesday morning in New York at 14. Highs of 20 and lows of 6.
Spice up your life.
It continues to be an absolute mess inbound on Huru Highway today. Feeding in from Langata Road. If you want to look at it coming off of Lusaka Road. And Landis, further into the city, Kenyatta Avenue, that continues to be crazy. The Thika Superhighway letting off just a little bit, so I guess you can breathe out, release the belt. Getting into the CBD, still a bit of a headache, especially as you get to around Pangani. Limuru Road is looking a little bit better, that whole Gigiri area, then going towards Limuru Road, a little bit better right now. Coming off Jogo Road also has released some of that pressure, but around the Makadara train station, that continues to be heavy traffic this morning. Not yet out of traffic hour in those parts, but we'll keep an eye on things through the rest of the day. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's
94.4 Spice FM.
Biggest conversation. The conversation continues. It's all about insurance penetration and product development in the insurance sector in the country with Ezekiel Masharia, MD and Chief Actuary at Kenbright. As we're going to the break, we were telling us about the many innovations that you're seeing coming into the market. What is the uptick of those innovations? Do these new inventors, let's just call them that, do they need to convince the market so much to take their product, or is there so much awareness?
Thank you very much for that. So remember, as I mentioned, the inventors that are coming in are inventing part of the process. So they're not really in touch with the consumer. So they are inventing, I'll give the example for the solvent guys who are trying to do valuations at your doorstep.
Yeah.
Those ones, you will not see them at the sale, but they will be part of the process. You see the guys on telematics, you only see them after the sale. So most guys are coming in, within the process to sort out the issue.
And their client is the
insurance market.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, for example, we just launched a product on M-Pesa app. And the app has been good, but for us, for you to check the code. So if you go on M-Pesa app right now, you can click on insurance, and you can just see the prices per insurer. The uptake there is good, but remember, people also don't want to buy online. They tend to just go back to their normal ways of doing things.
Why?
So also there's an inertia with the consumer. The consumer wants to do things the way they used to do them in the past.
Why?
Because you would have asked the question, if we had put, for example, for us, if we had put, buying the product because now the sticker, it comes on your email or WhatsApp.
Yep.
Why are people not doing it? It's just that people are just so used to, these
traditional ways of doing
this. So there's an inertia also on the consumer side because, as you mentioned earlier, there's lethargy on both sides, both on the consumer and the industry in terms of changing. And that frustrates the newcomers because they try to do things the new way, they don't succeed as much, and then the guys who are doing things the old way continue thriving. So then there's lethargy back. So the new guys withdraw back to the old ways. So maybe you have a role to play as SpiceFM to see how you can support this conversation.
Or maybe just continuation of what the people like yourselves are doing will lead there. Like we're talking about the banking sector. I mean, so there's the formal financial sector, banks, and then there was a Shylock.
Yeah.
And the Shylock evolved.
Yeah.
And now, not being
digital,
the Shylock has evolved into very many other things. You are able to access your money more easily without necessarily having to get your gas cylinder from your kitchen to go and take to the Shylock.
Yeah.
But it's easier.
Yeah.
Also, people in how they save and they want to access. Chama, the normal, women table banking has also evolved. We have seen a proliferation of SACCOs. It's because of that. It's because of people understanding their savings culture and what they get out of it and seeing the value for it.
Yeah.
Microfinance as well, but insurance stuck in the same. So I think if you if you continue doing what you're doing with a lot more awareness, with the focus on just creating awareness and showing the need. C.T. Muga always says that people will do something if they can see the benefit.
The issue here, we have a market that has a mandatory aspects and or dominance. And when you have a mandatory aspects to your product, legal mandate, then there's a bit of lethargy, okay? Because as you said, there's a guaranteed sales, for example. Let me give you an example that had monopoly in such a perspective, like the cable industry. People used to set up this, special channels.
Yeah.
They took time. By the time they woke up, Netflix had come and taken over.
Moved on.
You get?
Yep.
But you see now the insurance sector also has that monopoly from that perspective. And now the disruptors right now are having challenges entering the space. What can help, I keep mentioning, is capital. You cannot disrupt financial sector without capital. So if we see new players coming in, as I said, we saw Equity Bank has just set up a new company, Equity Life. So if they've been able to succeed on the banking side, maybe they can look at the insurance side. But there has to be a disruptor and new ways of doing things. We are seeing NHF will be mandatory shortly, which means they'll now have money to fund the hospitals and come up with new models of treatment. As I gave the example of paying the hospitals up front, as a new method of funding. So the ecosystem will evolve, but I keep mentioning the mandatory nature of the business creates that lethargy, and which means some people will succeed without spending more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what that does to your profit and loss? It makes you more profitable because we're seeing the same product, you're just spending more money
on it
to do the same
trying
thing.
to sell it.
So spending all this money on R&D. So that is where I would say the requirement is, to boost the business.
What is the uptake of a product that is not mandatory in terms of percentages in the country?
Let's go to general insurance. General insurance, as I give the example, last year, as per the regulator's results, was 130 billion money in that year. Of that, I give the example, it's a third. Medical a third, 45 billion. Motor a third, 44 billion, and then others. Others is your fire industrial, your fire domestic. So the others, that the last third, that is optional. Motor has, as I said, has a mandatory aspects, the third party, but people end up buying comprehensive.
Yeah.
If you of the 40 billion, 44 billion that Motor did, if you just deduct the mandatory aspect, it's not a lot. It's about 10 billion. Okay, so 10 billion is mandatory, but that 10 billion has grown the 30 to make it 40.
Okay.
Yep.
On medical, medical is a bit tricky because the private side, the corporate side of it, the retail side of it is 20%. It's a fifth. and the 4/5 is corporate business. Now, corporate business, it's mandatory in the aspect that the employer is required to take care of their health cost. But nobody told the employer to buy insurance. Yeah, but so they just transfer it to the insurers.
Yeah.
So if you say those are semi-mandatory, so the pure non-mandatory general insurance is about a third of the business. Okay. Then now, if you add the other components of motor, it can go to 50%. Life, most of it is optional. And that goes. That's another. The whole. It's about 70-80 billion. So if you combine general and life, we're talking about 70%, which is voluntary.
And do we see trends? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. Do we see trends in the uptake? I remember there was some time, maybe 10 or 5 years ago, everybody was taking up an education policy. And I say everybody, of course, being very careful. Because a lot of people who were taking up an education policy so that later on you could, you were able to fund your children's fees later. In this time of that COVID has happened, where there are a lot more hospitalizations, unfortunately deaths, families had to take care of their loved ones when they were out of work. We've seen a lot more people, just from conversations that we've had, taking up this insurance so that it can, help you out later. So based on what's happening in the economy at the time, socially or otherwise, do you then see that people are taking up the non-mandatory based on what is happening at the time?
Yeah, obviously you'll see an uptick, and it's a very simple reason, and it's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier. You as an individual, if you're faced by a catastrophe, you have your backup system. As I said, you have your work office friends, you have your family and friends, people at home. You see now, because of COVID and the depression it has brought about, your family and friends are not as willing to fund your catastrophe as they would earlier. So that's why you're seeing more people go into the insurance space. Because as I mentioned, insurance is one big charmer, right? So you're seeing people move into that space. The only thing I can caution people to do is just read the wording. An insurance policy is not like, a loaf of bread and you say, okay, this one is bigger than the other one. No. A policy, we can both have policies worth 30,000 shillings, but mine is very different from yours. Maybe mine protects me more from flooding than lightning, for example. And yours is just flat. So there has to be an understanding of what's happening. For example, most people don't know this, but if you hit somebody on the road, the maximum the insurance can pay you is 3 million bob. Okay? But you can ask them to pay more. To pay the guy who was hit. Remember, that guy has to sue you first.
Okay.
And then they pay. But you can also enhance it to more than 3 million. So in case you hit a group of people on the road and the total bill per person is 10 million. You see, you'll be sued in court, you'll be told to pay 10M. The insurer will sort you up to 3. Then you take care of the 7, it's up to you. Yeah. It's up to you. Remember, they've sued you. So you have to go and say, you know what, enhance my third-party liability benefit. So that's the thing, is that people need to understand when you're pricing a product, let's say a product is 30K, it's made up of components of maybe 5K, 6K, 7K, that each component has its own risk factor. If you view how business is written, is that they all go to their various pools. There's a pool for hitting people, there's a pool for repairing cars, there's a pool for legal issues, there's a pool for hospital issues, pool for deaths. So your insurance policy is actually a bundling. And you're actually saying, how much from this pool can I take? Can I take 3 million shillings or 10 million shillings? You may not know this, but the consumer assumes, since you have a policy that paid 10 million, mine should also pay 10 million.
Sure, yes.
But you see, that's not the case. And that's really where the disconnect comes, and that's where consumers feel that they've been shortchanged. But essentially, it's a product understanding issue.
Yeah. So consumers have been essentially could lead to then future apathy, right?
Yeah,
to say, okay, well, I'm not going to go into that mess again. I'm not going to bother. Let me just keep my money under my mattress, and if something happens, then I can deal with it later, right? So what kind of disruption then needs to take place so that folks are, number one, comprehending this thing fully, no matter what it is that you're taking up, and then you are actually selecting products that will help you in the future, and understanding that it actually is a good thing. I don't think there's any insurance in business today that believes that whatever they're offering is just some run-of-the-mill product. They probably do believe in the product that they're offering, right?
Yep.
So what kind of disruption needs to take place so that there's uptake of these very good things and people are not going to feel that they're being shortchanged on historical experience?
The answer to this is a very difficult answer, and the answer is peer-to-peer insurance, which is really a hybrid of. You see the guy who buys third-party insurance only, and then puts money in the bank in case his car is hit. He'll take money from his own bank.
Yes. Yeah.
And the guy who pays comprehensive, who pays a lot up front and has no money in the bank and hopes if I get hit, these guys will pay.
Yeah.
A peer-to-peer is the middle, where you put cash in a pool as peers, and then you check each other. So if you have peer-to-peer, essentially, I'll be the one telling you, hey, this thing is only 10 million or only 3 million. Make sure it's resolved. Now, the problem with peer-to-peer, consumers have to be aggregated into a pool that can create that structure. You see, remember, it's all about you give $100, you give $1, you give a shilling, you get back 100. You get. So you have to create a pool, a large enough pool. And numbers we've seen, we need about 50,000 lives to activate some of these projects. So I would say peer-to-peer is the answer to this. That's the real disruption, because everybody now insures each other.
It's basically a circle.
It's basically a circle with an insurance guaranteeing the circle.
So the structure is already there.
It's actually already there.
Because it's a circle, and people already understand, I am putting money here, I shall come and borrow 3 times my savings.
Yeah.
And it's because we are many.
Yeah.
So are you advising?
It's peer-to-peer. That's the answer.
So are you advising insurance companies right now to develop or come up with a product that would establish this?
You see, now the issue here is that when you create such structures, you destroy the current structure.
But is that not what you want to do? Disrupt.
Disruption should be gentle.
And it should also be external.
It should be painless.
Gentle
you cannot disrupt from inside.
Gentle disruption. What we want a child to be born without pain.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what gentle disruption is. So I think it's just up to the market to wait for that day. But it is happening. You're seeing people like first of all, the infrastructure to do it. The payment infrastructure is there, M-Pesa is there.
Yeah.
And mobile money is there.
Yep.
The smartphones and the digital platforms are there.
Yes.
The consumers are aggregated already in the Chama format.
Yes. It's a product that's lacking.
We just need the regulator to approve, then it's over.
Did we have to get the regulator approval first before we got before we got mobile lending working? Now we are getting them under the regulator, but it's because they're already taken off.
Financial sector has to be regulated because you'll have a lot of rogue players who will come in and take all that cash and run away with it. People have been in there in the pyramid scheme. So regulation is very critical for it to work. I think from where we're sitting, where the area that will flourish, and you'll hear it a lot, is life insurance. General insurance you can do peer-to-peer, but life insurance is where you want to put cash in a big dam, or if you want to do post-retirement, you fund a hospital. You come in as a group of 1,000 people who don't know each other. You put cash for post-retirement medical, where you'll be treated when you're old. And what you do, essentially, somebody should take that cash, buy a hospital, build one. So by the time you are 60, you go to the hospital for free. You see, instead of the current structure, which is, let's take your money, put it in bonds, and then when you're at 60, a Panadol is $1 million bob, and then it wipes your fund, right? Yeah. So those infrastructural requirements are required on the asset side to make sure that things move. Now that's the real disruption. Yeah.
Listening to you, I'm actually getting a bit encouraged that there's gonna be a disruption in this very archaic sector called insurance in this country, where you'll go in, you'll walk to an insurance to go buy insurance, like you walk into Subway.
Yeah.
You decide, okay, so I want this bun. I want you to put this.
Hold on.
You
chili,
decide what you want,
some,
and you understand it. You can see what you're buying, what you're getting. By the time you're sitting down, you chose the thing that you're eating.
Yeah. And actually,
today we don't have that. I don't know. You're the one who's telling me about. I have a comprehensive car insurance, because the law says have insurance. So I thought comprehensive also covers me. Then I get to see IRA doing adverts on the TV, and they're saying that with your comprehensive car insurance,
you insure yourself.
You're not insured. I'm thinking, so why am I? So
Actually, let me explain the issue here.
I need to get to a point where I just tick the boxes.
Exactly.
I want myself covered. Yes. Am I covering a third party? Yes. Am I covering the? Yes. This one says that if you hit someone, it's up to 3 million shillings. Take 1 3 million package, 2 3 million package, 3 like that.
Yeah, so actually that is possible. So as an actuary, I can make that happen. The problem is administrating that thing. Okay? The issue, and that's why you're seeing insurance, what they do is they come, we say, okay, we want to target 20K. What can fit in 20K? So you remove a bit of those things. It's like your Subway burger. You remove some of the salami, you remove some, and then you just say, here's the bun.
We can slather on some mayo, but that's those most you'll get.
This is a bun with no mayo. So because why? Because I'm being targeted to give a price, you get, or a rate, 4%, 3.5%, But actually, you can actually buy a product for 7% that has all the nicest things in the world. But see, now the consumer has to understand that actually you're actually ticking what is driving the price is actually what you're putting on your Subway burger. What you're really putting on the sandwich. Do you want some bacon or not? That should be how it works. But you see, right now, they just want a box.
They've come up with this is our markets can afford this worth this much. So create, remove, and then sell the market that. The market has moved to a point where everything now is about me making a choice. I choose what I want to watch, and that's why Netflix works. Because I sit there and you're not telling me it's 9 o'clock, watch the news. I'm like, get out. I want to watch a series. That's where the market is. And with this disruption, with everything that you've said, we have a payment platform that works. We've got a digital platforms that work. We've got an audience that already understands.
And has appetite.
And already knows how to use digital. We'll get there. There's a minimum, and now you add-ons.
Yeah. So actually, if you think about it, your motor has a minimum of 7,500, which is your third party, which is really, if you hit somebody on the road or you hit somebody's property, there's some coverage. But everything above that can actually be structured like a pick and choose solution. But it starts with platforms, and even for us, that's why we're trying to come up with a platform where people can pick and choose. But even for us, we're having difficulty. We're still putting the rates as is, like 4%, 3.5%. The idea is to make the consumer reach a point where they can actually spend 20 minutes or 10 minutes to pick and choose what they want. Okay, maybe I'm giving you, flood cover, or I'm giving you fire or theft, and you don't have that exposure for yourself.
Right.
You see, or somebody who hits people on the road, and he is being sued for all these kinds of money. The consumer does not know this. And the issue is that they assume it's also complex. You see, also another thing. If you buy your laptop, it might look complex, but you need to go in and understand Excel, but you do it. But if I tell you the same document, understand it, you're like, no. First of all, what is excess? What is loss of use? I don't want to hear. You've already exited, yet you're intelligent enough to understand more complex things. So, as I said, there's also apathy on both sides. And hopefully, when this infrastructure comes in to support, and for me, I think where the remaining piece is regulation to support these new inventors. And as I mentioned, regulators come in with a new, the IRA is coming with a new sandbox. And as I mentioned, sandbox means break the Insurance Act. That's what it simply means. Come up with a solution that breaks the Insurance Act. And when that comes in, we hope that the consumers will take up. Because you see, imagine somebody invents, does all those things, and then Eric still says, no, let me just go back to my car agent to give me my car.
If it makes sense.
You see what you do, you disincentivize innovation.
Yes.
You see? Yes. So there's also inertia on the consumer side. So that has to be recognized when you talk about disruption in the insurance sector. Not in Kenya, but even in Africa.
It's a global thing. But I think if it makes sense, people will take it. Whatever makes sense.
But it's a mind lock to the consumer.
If you're coming to sell me the algorithm that makes Excel work, I will shut down. If you just come in to tell me, enter here on row 1 and enter this one on column 2, and it will do a summation. That's it. The problem is you're coming to tell me, you see now, this is how the algorithm works. I will be like, okay.
Next. Let me give you an example. Right now, Scanbright, we have a product for car insurance. Right now. The people are listening. On the road, they can go on the M-Pesa app and click on car insurance and check the car insurance. But are they doing it? No. It's there.
Click to validate your car insurance.
No, just click to see prices. Okay. We have the whole market there.
Okay.
They're not doing it. I think for me, the issue is that the consumer already...
Are they aware? Is there adequate communication to let them know that this thing exists?
It's on the M-Pesa app. If you have an M-Pesa app, you know all the things that are there.
No, I don't.
No, not necessarily.
There are very many things on this M-Pesa
app. Send money.
I go to send money to buy airtime.
Have you clicked on Discover?
How many people know there's a Discover button?
There's a Discover button.
I did not know that.
So you see, all those guys have downloaded it, even you have not. So you see, the guys are disrupting, but there's no uptake.
Yeah,
and that's what the issue is.
Tell Safaricom to come and tell me to click the Discover thing.
The disruption must come with adequate, if not superfluous, communication. Absolutely necessary.
Where is Discover?
Send
money, withdraw cash, buy airtime, loans and savings, slip on M-Pesa my account. Or do I need to be on
There's M-Pesa app.
Oh, on the app.
On the app.
M-Pesa app.
Yeah, I refuse
to do that. Not even in the atmosphere.
I refuse to go to the app.
So anyway, so what I'm saying is this. You see, at the end of the day, if you're a disruptor, one of the things you have to do is put the disruption in aggregators.
Yes.
You know, like M-Pesa. Kenya Power, hopefully one day we can put an aggregator there where, let me give you an example. Instead of buying home insurance, it's part of your bill. Where if your house is burnt down, since you have KPLC, you should have it insured.
Right.
But see, the issue here we have is that consumers feel like any money going into insurance is not going to come back.
It's because
until that is resolved,
that mindset. Yeah, if we all just see insurance as working and this thing that works for me, it's gonna work. Anyway, Ezekiel, thank you very much for joining us. Ezekiel Macharia is the MD and Chief Actuary at Kenbright. He's been telling us about insurance and their journey that's going to disrupt the insurance sector. I can't wait for that day. Cannot wait.
It's coming.
They definitely, it needs to happen tomorrow.
It's coming.
These people have just been sitting here. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th day of November, 2021. From Ezekiel Macharia and Ndu Okoh and Eric Latiff. Have a lovely day. Today's proverb is from Rwanda. A large eye does not mean keen vision. A large insurance company does not mean it understands. A large eye does not mean keen vision. Have a lovely day, people. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your